Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wowhead Weekly number 276. Today, we have a few things to cover. We will start off with the Anduin Cutscene, among other things that just dropped because of the latest patch, which is now live on the World of Warcraft servers. Apart from the cutscene, there's some other really interesting lore lines to cover and discuss with you guys with some surprising new information. We also have the quarter two earnings call, of course, to cover with some very interesting numbers and little announcements as well that were a little bit surprising. And then, of course, we will dive into the lawsuit, which has been very, very, very daunting but important in the past 2 weeks. A lot of things have happened, and we wanted to talk about the things that has happened since last show that we think are important to just talk about and to know that's going on. So yeah, that pretty much sums it up. Before we jump into anything, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Annie, or also known as Annie Fuchsia, and I'm a full-time streamer on Twitch, playing games and a lot of World of Warcraft in the past, maybe not so much right now, but probably soon again. My lovely co-host is Perculia.
Everyone, I'm Perk, Iron Wowhead. We are joined by Bright Paw right now. Say hello, wave the paw. And we certainly have a wide range of stuff to discuss on the show. It's been a pretty busy time for the Wowhead team with new stuff to cover in game, and then, as you mentioned, daunting is a good word. All that lawsuit coverage, which can be really tiring for the staff to cover, especially if they're, been affected or observed things secondhand, and trying to do a good job spreading information to the community. So it's kind of good in a way that we're temporarily doing shows on Tuesday because we have all of this, new lore stuff that popped up Tuesday morning to balance out, all the lawsuit discussion as well. So silver
Mm-hmm.
lining to all that. We'll have a few more varied topics on the show.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. It's feels a little bit better to start by talking about game related things before
Yeah.
jumping into um, the more real things, just to
Mm,
give it a little bit of little bit of a balance. Feels good.
yeah.
But yeah, so
So,
the big thing
yeah.
here, the Anduin cutscene. Maybe
Yeah, do
that's
we
something
need
that we want to
spoiler tags for this?
watch.
Because right now it's not up. Oh my god, Bright Paw, we're putting you down. Oh no, 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 no. His foot is caught in the microphone. Oh god.
Oh,
There, god.
oh.
um, so I don't think this is live in the EU right now, but it will be in
Mm-hmm.
like an hour, so I guess it's fine. But yeah, if you don't want to know what's going on, the lore isn't technically on EU realms yet, but on NA it's already up. People can do this.
Mm-hmm. I think because
But
it's
yeah.
live footage, I think it kind of makes sense. I mean, we could put a spoiler tag up now here before it
Yeah.
plays, just
Hmm.
to give it as a sort of warning. Like, this is spoiler. If you're still in EU, the servers aren't up yet. If you're watching this later on YouTube, then obviously you don't have to worry about this. But yeah, so it's out here on the 10th of August for NA, and for EU it'll be the 11th of August. And
Yeah.
it's live in the game, as in it's not PTR or anything like that. So yeah, in a few hours
Yeah,
it's up
which
for
is
EU
kind of
as well.
special. Because, like, a lot of times when we cover the campaign, um, it's already something we've data mined or played through on the PTR, but Blizzard purposely hid everything related to the final
Yeah.
chapter,
Mm-hmm.
so it's more hype when it hit live servers today. So none
Mm-hmm.
of us have seen this until this morning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, indeed. I think that's actually a good point to make as well. Usually when we have these, we have them as a PTR, and that's why we put the spoiler tag up. And when it's on the week of the release of the game itself or the patch itself, then it makes a
Yeah.
bit more sense to not worry too much about it. But we'll put it up just in case. And yeah, let's jump straight into it. It's not that long, so we should be able to
Mhm.
enjoy it here.
Yeah.
No problem. It might start off a bit loud, but I'll try to be quick. Okay. Um, yeah, let's go.
The battle is almost upon us. I will deal with the invading forces atop Torghast. When we reach Oribus, you will defend Zobal while he completes the ritual.
You mean he will compel me to defend him? Each time he dominates my will, I feel myself slipping further away. Is this what you felt when Arthas raised you, Sylvanas? Hollow, empty, everything you once were, consumed by darkness.
Yes, young lion. But in the end, the sacrifices we've made will have been worth it. Once the cycle of life and death has been broken and remade, we will...
By that time, I'll have been lost. And so will you. I only hope my friends will remember me as I was, not what you made me to be.
All right, there it is.
So, if you'd like some background context on this, I just heard something tripoded. If you'd like some background context on this, Thrall and Jaina come across the compass, Anduin's compass, that we see him drop at the end of the Sanctum of Domination raid. And they pick it up, and they realize that Anduin has enchanted a memory into it, and then this memory plays, which takes place before the Sanctum of Domination raid, and that's why it explains why Sylvanas has the red eyes, and also how they're talking, because we know, after the raid, Anduin follows the jailer through the portal. So this takes place before the raid, as they're discussing the strategy on how to defend themselves against Torghast.
I wish we had seen it all in the right order.
Yeah, because it makes... I still think that the cinematic at Sanctum of Domination is still a little disjointed, but it you understand why Sylvanas maybe had a change of heart, or some of her looks towards Anduin in the raid cinematic make more sense now.
Yep.
Like, it's like, oh, like she's, glancing at him as a sign of respect, or sort of being like, hey, I understand what you're saying, like, I'm doing this for you, type of thing. I think it makes a lot more sense this way.
Yeah, I think it would have given a lot more context in that way if that had been done in that correct order as well. Because I think a lot of us were somewhat confused about what actually happened there when she, what felt like randomly decided to go against the jailer, and now it gave a little bit more context. And I think even this short, do I call it cutscene or cinematic?
Yeah.
Cutscene.
The cutscene is because it uses the in-game models.
Gotcha.
And the cinematic, it's more like the
CGI.
Artistic, highly rendered, different style.
It feels like this cutscene actually gives a very nice glimpse into what is going on. I have to say, I'm not even sure I like this whole path for Sylvanas to suddenly become a relatable person. But I still think it's nice dipping into how Anduin asks her if this is how she felt. I think that is still a very nice touch, and I think we could have dived even deeper and maybe even given flashbacks of her past or similar. Make it into a proper cutscene to make it or proper cinematic, maybe even to give it even more impact.
When the raid cinematic came out, we were saying that a lot of the recent cinematics have been really short, and it would have made more sense if the cinematic was a proper length, like like we had in Legion, and we could have actually had a little flashback where we see Sylvanas serving Arthas. We see her sort of having her will eroded without her knowing it, and that it could have been more of a character study instead of rushing
Yeah.
through some of these points.
Yeah.
But yeah, I also think that the Anduin and Sylvanas cinematics and cutscenes have an interesting dynamic that is more nuanced than some of the other ones with Sylvanas. Like Sylvanas and Tyrande, it's like Sylvanas has to do her little menacing speech to Tyrande and then, fly off.
Yeah.
And there's lots of explosions and sparkles. But with the Anduin and
That's a
Sylvanas
good
ones,
point.
you may
Yeah,
disagree
it's like
with
more
the point of the
touching.
story.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's a really interesting progression that we've had so many with them, and you see how Sylvanas is treating him with respect, even in her state that she's her mood changes over time since the start of Shadowlands, and she lets him, say his part to her and critique her, and doesn't sneer at him. She just kind of takes it.
Yeah. She just takes
Like
it.
I thought it was really interesting when what was the part? At this point Sylvanas is like, "Oh, the sacrifices we've made will have been worth it." And I feel that at the start of Torghast, Shadowlands, she's all like, "Oh, the jailer is great, the amazing plan, I'm angry with my past, things will be better." And at this point, Anduin has gotten to her in some form because she's still trying to rationalize the jailer, but now it's like, yeah, you're right. Like, things kind of suck for both of us, but I think it will still be worth it. So you can see how there's a progression in her mind that she's not totally believing the jailer, and then that makes it more believable that she is skeptical and eventually goes against him after the raid.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, I think that if we had this before, it could have been a step that shows her progression a bit more clearly. So it's not just like, oh, look, arrow. That said, there's still a lot of questions because, Anduin is like, hey, you were raised by Arthas, Sylvanas. You are forcing me to serve the jailer. I'm being compelled. Like, and then we see the cinematic and she's all like, I will never serve. Serving is bad. And it's like, well, you're kind of forcing Anduin to serve the jailer.
Yeah.
Why is that still okay?
Mm-hmm.
Why are you so special?
Mm-hmm.
So I think the cinematic works because you can both feel sympathetic for Sylvanas, relating to how being controlled by the Arthas was so miserable, but then it also reminds you that, she has done horrible things. And like you both feel sympathetic for her, what she's gone through, but then you also agree with Anduin that, yeah, Sylvanas, you got to take ownership of this. You did this, terrible thing to Anduin, and you can't, no matter how much you want to justify it. So I think it's very good at highlighting two different perspectives with Sylvanas.
I think if you isolate the story to the part with her and Anduin, I think it does capture that part really well, actually. But if you look back and just look at the events before, like we have the Teldrassil situation, for example. I feel a little bit stubborn with having to mention it again, but it just feels so weird with Teldrassil happening and also Sarfang as well. Like
Yeah.
both
What
of these
happened to
things.
Sourfang, by the way? Where is he?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that too.
Yeah.
But it's like it was Sylvanas who's behind that, and she was behind both Teldrassil and Sourfang being dead, and it's like, okay, never mind that. We're gonna redeem you now. It still feels wrong to me. I don't know. But if you isolate the story to do with Anduin only, then I think it's a pretty good story.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it still feels bad even with Anduin because Sylvanas is like, yeah, what you're feeling is like what I felt at the hands of Arthas, which was, everyone's like, oh, that's, Arthas did this, horrible thing. So she's basically implicitly admitting that she is acting like Arthas. Like,
Yeah.
she's basically saying like, yeah, I'm the villain. So
But
yeah,
that can work, right? Because it's like you have been treated so badly, then that you kind of get numbed from it and then treat others that way because you were treated that way.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's
I
kind of
also
like how I see it, like where that part can make sense.
mm, yeah, there's something I was gonna say, and then Brightpot ate the microphone. Um, yeah. Oh yeah, I was gonna say that I feel like Sylvanas kind of makes a lot of excuses for herself.
Mm.
Like she's angry that she doesn't have, free will, or she goes on that, she wasn't offered a choice, or she's doing something for a bigger plan. And Anduin, I think it feels satisfying that Anduin can call her out and be like, "You did this. Like you made me this way." Like she can't just keep hiding behind excuses or making it seem it's someone else's problem, or she has some plan that people don't understand. Like I'm glad that he just was like, "Yeah, like you did something, you know, really bad, and you're the only one responsible for this."
Yeah.
Like to
Mm-hmm.
take away the jailer's plan, like I don't care what this, cosmic plan is, like you did something which was not good.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, finally, thank you, Anduin. um so if we have more of that style of writing in 915, like little back and forth, I think that would be better. But yeah, I'd be very uncomfortable if they go down this huge redemption thing, or like, oh, was Sylvanas like secretly trying to help Balloon and this and that. And it's also interesting how when she talks to Anduin, there's like a lot of respect, and it sounds like two people
Yeah.
under duress. But like when you have these other cinematics with Sylvanas, she's like the mustache twirling villain. And it's like
Yeah.
maybe we could have dialed that down a bit more.
Yeah.
Because the contrast is really extreme. So
It is really extreme, actually, now that you point it out as well. Like her versus Tyrande and her versus Anduin. It's like two completely different characters. And it makes it really confusing. Like, I feel like I can somewhat sympathize sometimes, but then I feel like, oh god, no. Like, this person has done horrible things, and then you see her play around with Tyrande, and I don't know. The whole, the whole character feels very everywhere.
yeah. Something else which is interesting, I thought, is when Anduin says, um, you know, uh, basically Anduin says, I feel my will slipping further away. Is this what you
Mm-hmm.
felt when Arthas raised you, Sylvanas?
Mm-hmm.
By that time I'll have been lost, and so will you. Um, like Anduin's very perceptive. I mean, I'm sure Anduin doesn't notice the whole, the jailer had half of Sylvanas' soul, but I think that it's interesting how he noticed that Sylvanas was changing further and further away from herself. And maybe that's why he's always trying to find the good in someone, or, he's had
Mm.
many interactions with Sylvanas. They interacted a lot in Before the Storm. So maybe he's noticed her personality change over time since she partnered directly with the jailer. I think even the mythic Sylvanas mount, it's talking about how there was like the darkness in her soul, and how that got filled up by, vengeance over time.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, Anduin is noticing this, even though they're in different positions. Um, I think that that's a very, interesting point he's
Yeah,
making,
that is
that
interesting.
like
I
she's
didn't
like
take
sort of
note of
losing
that.
herself as she goes on and on, even if
Mm-hmm.
like it's not the exact same situation
Mm-hmm.
he's in.
Yeah, because
So
I'll pull up the
yeah,
text here. So the line that you're
yeah,
talking about here is how he says, by that time I'll have been lost, and so will you. So he is pointing out that she will have, changed enough, even more, to then be lost. So then it must be the case that he's noticed, like you said, that there's been some change happening at all times, and this is the final destination of where everything will be as the jailer wants, and that will mean that he is gone, and it's also going to mean that she's gone as well.
that if we had more cinematic space, this could tie in really well to the line about serving. Like maybe that was the obvious message for Sylvanas as to, wow, like the jailer wants me to serve. Like I've come really far astray from my, personality of being a leader,
Mm-hmm.
and doing things that I feel in control of. Like maybe that's when she realized that she was a pawn and she said, I will never serve. But of
Mm-hmm.
course, because it felt rushed, we didn't have all that buildup. Like I definitely feel like this cutscene could have come first, and that cinematic in the raid could have been, 4 or 5 minutes instead of
Mm-hmm.
3 or so.
You're right.
So,
Like, because personally for me as well, I didn't take too much notice of how much that actually means, that statement alone,
mhm.
how it means that he's witnessed something, a change in front of his very eyes. And him saying that could have, yeah, affected the Sylvanas and maybe given her some more insight. Having this before the big
Yeah.
cinematic would have definitely changed how I how I would watch it. So I think it
Yeah,
should
I
have
mean,
been
it
out
definitely
before.
feels that she's taking his words to heart, even
Yeah.
with how
She's always
Sylvanas
been
is
so
like,
patient with his words, actually.
yeah. Like, I think it's interesting how she's talking to him about what's going to happen in the raid,
Mm-hmm.
and he responds clearly temporarily free of the jailer's will, um, and she doesn't stop him or uh, like control him, dominate his mind, bring him to the jailer again. She lets him say his piece, freed.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's interesting because she hasn't told the jailer that Anduin is sometimes resisting his control,
Yeah,
and
true.
she doesn't seem startled by this, which implies it's happened before. And I think
Yeah,
that also
that's also
really
true.
guilts Sylvanas
Yeah,
that,
she was talking to him so
yeah.
casually. He mentions, "Oh, does this remind of when you were revived?" And she's like, "Yep." She's not taken aback or anything. She's just sees this as a casual
Yeah,
conversation with Anduin.
and I think in the earlier cinematics, when Anduin was talking about her past, like she would cut him off and be like, enough, or like, we're done here. Like she was
Mm-hmm.
glaring at him and got really upset. But now, it seems like she respects what he has to say, but still feels like now it's not even the jailer's plan. It's just like, well, yeah, this is really gonna suck, but we have to eventually break the cycle of life and death. It's not like, oh, the jailer is the key. Like I feel like her perspective is shifting here, um, as opposed to just shutting Anduin down and saying that the jailer is great.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, so I think that I would like more cutscenes and stuff in this style, and
Mm-hmm.
it's tough, like that Blizzard clearly didn't want people to see this until a month after the raid opened,
Yeah,
um
that's weird.
but like then it just makes people angry. They're like, oh, the cinematic looks incomplete, or the story's being fed to us spread out over time, and it's like, well, it is being spread out over time. Maybe they spread it out more than they wanted to because of COVID, but it definitely, if you're going to present an incomplete cinematic and then reveal a little bit more a month after, like that is a choice,
Yep.
designed to make people confused or debate engagement about the cinematic.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Um, but yeah, so I guess we don't know when 915 is coming. I'm sure the Sylvanas book, but that's coming out in 2022, will explain all this in more detail. But if they have more writing in this style, I feel, as opposed to the Tyrande Sylvanas stuff, I would be happier with that level of nuance. Not like, oh, Sylvanas did the bad thing and took the power away, but then, Elune was okay with the soul. Like, I think that's a little too convoluted and cosmic, and it doesn't have that personal connection. But I think the nuance in this cutscene would be something I'd be happy to see more of, and of course, not, strung out over a period of many months.
Mm-hmm.
I think we want some answers now, not more questions after years of the Sylvanas mystery.
Maybe this is a path of making Sylvanas be very strange, very impulsive, very angry, very nonchalant, very everything, except when she's around Anduin. Maybe that's the point.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's that like Anduin is someone she can let her guard um down around.
Like maybe
And
she
they
would
have
not do
this
the other
history.
things. Yeah, maybe she would not do the other things if Anduin had gotten to her earlier.
Yeah. I mean, I also think that on some level, if she can relate to Anduin and her control over Arthas, it took a while for Sylvanas to break free of Arthas, and there probably has to be, some level of respect that Anduin is able to resist the jailer at some times. So
Mm-hmm.
she can sympathize with Anduin that it's horrible to sometimes feel not in control of your actions, and also, like, she knows how much willpower is required to break away from your captor, and she's seeing Anduin uh, do that to the same or even a greater extent than she was able to at first.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose it is some kind of thought like that, which would kind of explain it, I guess, because right now it's confusing.
It could
Her
it could
personality is
also
all over the place.
explain maybe how she has to come to terms that the jailer was responsible for the Lich
Mm-hmm.
King.
Mm-hmm.
If Anduin is making a parallel, hey, isn't this really similar to what you
Yep.
went through with Arthas? Maybe at that point she's starting to realize that, the jailer isn't some, totally wronged being who, is questionable but works towards a greater good. And, maybe Sylvanas was so desperate to accept the jailer's promise, vision for a better future, that she was overlooking really obvious warning signs.
Mm-hmm.
And, things like in the cinematic hearing the word serve, plus Anduin drawing the parallel between her experiences and his, like that could start making her think that the jailer is not, you know, as sympathetic, benevolent as she thought it was. Like it was
Mm-hmm.
not an equal partnership.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I wish this could have come sooner. And it also, I think, you obviously don't want to reveal the whole story in advance, but when there's so many twists and turns, it's hard to get invested in a story
Mm-hmm.
when you're not sure, like, what the ground is. If it keeps changing on you, it's hard to, like, start building all these theories just when, like, the foundation keeps changing.
Yeah. I guess the idea is because we saw this flashback as part of the what's it called? The pendant? Is it a pendant?
Yeah, the compass.
Compass, yeah.
Yeah.
So this flashback was a part of the compass, and they are watching it together, right? So it's like
Mhm.
they are discovering what actually happened so that they can understand. Um, so maybe the point is for those characters like Jaina and everyone to learn what happened rather than us. But then maybe it should have been presented differently for us as well. So we could have gotten maybe a deeper dive into it, and that part could have happened before the cinematic. Because I can see that they wanted like a cool way of the characters learning about what happened behind the scenes. Like Anduin left the compass behind. It's like a pretty cool thing in
Maybe.
theory.
I mean, I understand why they wanted to end the campaign with like a interesting thing, but I also feel this could have worked well as a post-raid quest.
Yeah.
I mean, we have the cinematic,
Also, like you get
he
it straight
drops
after. Yeah,
yeah,
you're right.
he drops the compass, and then we have
Mm-hmm.
this straight away, and
Mm-hmm.
then the
Yeah.
cinematic, I believe, still has flaws, but this could have provided more context
Mm-hmm.
as to different parts of it. So I think that could have been, interesting. Drop those at the same time.
Yeah. No, that's true. That's true. Of course, they could have just dropped it immediately. Then that would have explained it and still kept the same story. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Um, Also, just sort of as a side note, the fact that Anduin was able to do this with the compass, like using his magical powers to imbue it with the memory when uh, he was trapped in Torghast, shows how powerful his magic is, or that
True.
he was. If Sylvanas is watching over him, she gave
Mm-hmm.
him enough free reign to not be controlled by the jailer, and also
Mm-hmm.
to have some use of his powers to, you know, seal this memory in the compass.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, I mean, that's just interesting because the jailer, we can see how helpless Anduin is when the jailer is around and ordering him to do stuff.
Yep.
So it's almost like Sylvanas was almost maybe even doing this as a kindness, letting Anduin be free for temporary periods when the jailer isn't watching, and not
Yep.
punishing Anduin by letting him see this. So it's just very interesting. It explains. It's a very interesting dynamic, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I like their dynamic
But yeah.
together. Mm-hmm.
So we can also talk a little about some interesting lore dialogue that popped up today when you finished the campaign. And again, I think that all the side stories do a really good job with the dialogue, and it's more the main story with how stuff is hidden for months or years that you know makes things is a little harder to get engaged with. But I think that these little side stories are interesting. So
Mm-hmm.
why don't we highlight the Uther one first?
Yes. Let's pull it up on the screen. There we go. So we have Jaina and Uther, who've finally encountered each other.
Yeah, and this is something people were really interested following the Uther step of the campaign,
Mm-hmm.
where Uther is making peace. What happened with Stratholme, um, reconsidering some of his past actions of vengeance, getting lots of closure with people in his past, and Jaina, who was also uh, there, abandoning Arthas. People are like, oh, when are these two going to meet up again? So we finally got the dialogue
Mm-hmm.
where, Uther is now with the Kyrians. The Kyrians have reformed, letting some of them keep their memories. The Forsworn are now welcome in.
I like
And
that. Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think that was, I think it was overshadowed by the lawsuit, but I think the Uther step was really well done last week.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they have their reunion, and they've both been characters that met up when Jaina was very young, and Jaina's been through a lot, Uther's been through a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and they seem to both act like mature characters that have learned from maybe some more of their impulsive paths, like
Mm-hmm.
they're usually good leaders, but they did make some impulsive choices due to all the trauma they faced, which is understandable. But they seem to be learning from it and seeing how can we improve in the future, and both
Mm-hmm.
experience talking about regret for how Arthas turned out, because they both cared for him, the version of him before he was corrupted. So
Yep.
yeah, I
They
think
both
I
say
think
they
it's nice
loved
to have
him
those
even.
characters. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's also Jaina also seems really upset by what happens to
Mm-hmm.
Anduin, because Anduin seemed to be more coerced to serve the jailer, more so than Arthas, but there are still lots of parallels.
Oh yeah.
And I think that this dialogue really emphasizes the nature of forgiveness to others, but also to yourself. Um, and yeah, it just seemed to be a very positive, you
It's a
know,
nice
nice
touching,
reunion.
yeah, nice touching reunion and conversation. And I also like how it ends quite openly,
Yeah.
where she just says, "Thank you, Uther, and can you stay a while and talk? There's so much I'd like to share."
Yeah, I think that this is also good for Jaina because, so many, she lost a lot of her mentors, so much tragedy, losing Theramore.
Yep.
Now she lost Anduin. Yes, she reunited with her mother, but that was after a very dramatic quest line. So I think that Jaina having more family figures that can empathize with the struggles she's been through. I think that's really healthy for her and Uther, um,
Mm-hmm.
to not feel so isolated and desperate and sort of living in their heads thinking about like tragic things that happened to them or wondering if they should have handled things differently. I think it's good for her to have more characters that have been in the same difficult situation to talk to.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We have
Um,
some other interesting
y-
dialogues as well to cover.
yeah. Next up, this isn't as much of a spoiler, but it's still interesting. It's about Thrall and Draka discussing Garrosh's fate.
Mm-hmm.
And previously, we know Thrall and Draka met up, reveal their identities to each other. Um, so they're just having another conversation now, and they are discussing Garrosh, which
Yep.
when we last saw Garrosh, he died in that really badass cutscene. You know, it was very much
Yeah, quite
Garrosh. You
recent.
know, it's
Mm-hmm.
very
Mm-hmm.
flashy, honorable death on his own terms. You know, he
Mm-hmm.
takes out the bad guy, but then
No regrets.
also he's like unrepentant for the bad things he did, and he also insults Thrall on his way out. So, you know,
Yep.
it's a very complex
True.
cutscene. Yeah. So in this dialogue, we see Thrall's perspective, and Draka is noticing that Thrall seems to be tearing himself up a lot about how he treated Garrosh, and you know, people have suspected that, you know, Thrall was really affected by Garrosh, and Thrall just lays it out, being like, yeah, um, I made him war chief. I didn't give him the best guidance, and I was the
Mm-hmm.
one that killed him. You know, like he just admits that he thinks he, you know, did the wrong thing, and he bears
Yeah.
some responsibility. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I've seen some people say that, you know, Draka is like uh sort of downplaying Thrall's role in this, but I think what Draka is trying to say is that yes, you can mourn, you know, you can feel bad that you did this thing, but you can't, you know, live in the past. Like, you've been given this chance to have a future.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, Garrosh, yeah, you know, maybe you didn't do the right thing with Garrosh, but he, like, the way he acted kind of also forced himself down that path. But, you know, you have
Mm-hmm.
a future, so don't just mope, you know, don't squander your future. You can do something good in the future.
Yeah.
You know, like the
And
whole his path ended,
yeah.
yours moves onward.
Yeah. And she is also a mother here, right?
Mm,
And it's somewhat
yeah.
a mother's job to do this, to make sure that your child, you know, comes out of something horrible, uh, and strong and still believing in themselves. So if anyone, like if Draka is seemingly downplaying it, I think that's for good reason, probably.
Right. It's also like Thrall may have not been there as much as he could for Garrosh, but you know, Garrosh is being used in Revendreth as a mana battery, because
Yep.
he's so prideful,
Yep.
and you know, even when he breaks free at the end, he says he's not going to repent for everything, for
Mm-hmm.
anything,
Mm-hmm.
and that shows that yes, Thrall may have done some things badly, but Garrosh sort of made them worse in how he reacted to them. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, we've seen that, you know, Kael'thas has tried to get a chance of redemption. We quest with him, but, uh, you know, Garrosh is just pure like, I don't regret anything I did.
Yep.
I hate Thrall, you know, for the
Yeah.
Horde. So it's
In the
not
end, it's
like
his
him.
decision. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like after, if he's, you know, he's so prideful he can't have any self-reflection and learning to improve. So yes,
Yeah.
Thrall maybe um maybe he shouldn't have been war chief, but he also didn't take it upon himself to learn how to become a better war chief, or, you know, reach out for help or find advisors. He was too prideful
Mm-hmm.
to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Indeed.
yeah, so I mean, I think it's good that they did have this conversation though,
Mm-hmm.
because we were saying that it felt bad with the Garrosh cutscene that you know, Thrall was in the raid, and he didn't get closure with Garrosh. And it felt like sort of lots of questions. And I think it's good that he can directly address his feelings of guilt with his mother. And kind of like Uther and Jaina, maybe this could be a way for Thrall to be like, yes, I have regrets how I handled things in the past, but I need to, again, look towards the future and, learn from the mistakes and do better now. I think that those two dialogues parallel each other well.
Mm-hmm. That's actually true. And I like these dialogues in general. I feel like they give they give some flavor outside of things. Like maybe if we had some more Jaina and Anduin dialogues in the game somehow, but maybe that's difficult because we wouldn't really come across them. I don't know. I feel like
Yeah,
they give a nice little perspective of things.
yeah, I also feel that, I mean, all things considered, there's like more dialogue in these little back and forths than they are in the official cinematics.
Yeah,
And
they say a
yeah,
lot.
yeah, and I think that they're really good. Um, and I would like to see more of them, or even little asides like back in Stormwind and Orgrimmar. I thought all the little dialogues were really good after the Fourth War to show how everyone was reacting, to the events being
Yeah, I
over, like the
remember.
loyalists, have things really
Mm-hmm.
changed. Um, and I think that they would also be good for dealing with parts of the story that you can't do a full-blown quest line on. Um, like maybe there's something from like BFA that wasn't wrapped up. Like maybe you could have like Zandalari talking about, Talanji doing well at ruling, or the Teldrassil refugees talking about the efforts to rebuild, or the undead talking about Kalia. I think little things like that help build out the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. World building in a way.
Yeah.
I agree.
Um we are still cranking out some of these dialogues because the quest was bugged until like an hour before the show, so we have a few more minor ones to do.
Mm-hmm.
But a big one that we wanted to highlight sort of as our final one for the show was about the jailer, and
Mm-hmm.
fan theory confirmed.
Yeah.
So, um, so many people have wondered what the jailer's original purpose was in Shadowlands. Some have suspected he was the Arbiter because, he talks about the other Covenant leaders, being his family. Right, Pod, don't eat the microphone. And the jailer has an empty hole in his chest cavity. The Arbiter has a glowing orb. They kind of fit like a positive, negative effect. In the raid cinematic, the orb, once it's pulled out of the Arbiter, fits into the jailer's heart perfectly. And it was now confirmed that the jailer was originally the Arbiter, but he tried to sort of overstep his power. Basically, the Primus says Zoval stood among us as the Arbiter, yet he defied the will of the First Ones and sought to unmake the balance of the cosmos. For his crimes, we stripped our brother of his power and bound him to the maw. It was I who scribed the runes of domination upon his flesh. We used his anima to construct a new arbiter, one that would be dispassionate and just. I should have realized that he would never stop fighting to reclaim his power and see his schemes through to their bitter end. So, yeah, laid out there. One could say, oh, that was convenient. The Primus reveals this at the very end. But I think there were a lot of clues that made this obvious, in retrospect, especially when the orb fits into, his chest and then he just sort of like explodes with new armor. I think that made that pretty clear that he was
Mm-hmm.
tied to the Arbiter in some way.
And he said it too,
Um,
right? He said that he needed to get what belongs to him back, or something along those
exactly.
lines.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that it was the Arbiter's sigil that he took for that.
Yeah. I mean, this could also, if he's telling Sylvanas these things, like, oh, um, the Arbiter wanted to send you to the Maw, or, the Arbiter is sending all these people to this unfair thing. Like, I used to be the Arbiter, but everyone treated me badly, so they locked me up. Like, I would make a better Arbiter. I need my anima back.
Mm-hmm.
You could see how maybe that was appealing also to someone like to Sire Denathrius. Like, he could play upon feelings of guilt that, maybe, don't you want to see me back as the Arbiter again? Like, Revendreth would be in much better shape if I was in charge, type of thing. So
True.
it explains maybe why he was persuasive and was trying to use flaws with the current Arbiter to justify why he would be better in that sort of role.
We haven't really seen many conversations between him and Sire Denathrius, have we?
No, it just was like, oh, his purpose is over, bye. So,
Yeah.
um,
I feel like putting some meat onto that, similar to the conversation that you kind of mentioned now, or hypothetical conversation where he promises to give back to Sire Denathrius to change things back to when he was Arbiter or whatever. I think that could have been a really interesting dialogue.
yeah. I also think that the wording of yet he defied the will of the first ones and sought to unmake the balance of the cosmos is interesting
Yeah.
because
What does that
we have,
mean?
Argus the Unmaker, and there's been speculation when the cycle of death broke, and it doesn't exactly line up with Argus, but people are wondering if that was like related in some way. People believe the
Mm-hmm.
cycle of death broke soon after Ysera died at the start of Legion. But with how Argus talking about the Maker and death and the red swirly things on mythic difficulty and the the red bolt of angry energy hitting the Arbiter in that opening cutscene. Um, I think all of that, it's just a very interesting choice of language, like specifically using that exact same word.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. But yeah, it does. You can see how the jailer would retell the story to his advantage and sort of blame anything an ally is unhappy with onto the current arbiter and be like, I can make this all better.
Mm-hmm.
So it's also
I
interesting
think
how the Primus was the one that did this
yeah.
to the jailer, and that explains why the jailer was so angry with the Primus that he then enslaved the Primus.
Yeah. That's also true. I think there's been a lot of missed opportunities for good stories and good dialogues and good cutscenes, good cinematics potentially, to do with the jailer. Like more sort of world building, not world character building, more character building things for him. I think could have definitely taken place because this does make everything a lot more deep, a lot more interesting. There's a lot more sides to everything.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think that the jailer is now coming across as someone that can be charismatic when he wants to be,
Mm-hmm.
very persuasive if he was the former arbiter. Like, I think it would be really
Mm-hmm.
interesting to see him converting someone on the fence, to
Yeah.
end up working with him.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I
Definitely.
think that the jailer is a new character. I think it could be useful to see him, especially because a lot of people comment, oh, the arbiter just seems like a punching bag. The arbiter is just doesn't have much of a personality. So if you have this
Yeah.
arbiter that just seems like weak and kind of boring, not saying
Yeah.
anything, and the jailer is, charismatic and making it seem like he was wrong, and look at the horrible things the arbiter did, and she's not even defending herself, and I give me a chance, I have the knowledge, I'll create something better. I think that could have been compelling to see. Maybe they wanted that, but COVID resources, who knows? But
Mm-hmm.
you know, with all this extra information, like the story is more interesting, and the jailer does seem less two-dimensional.
Yeah. Indeed. That's the word.
So
Two dimensional.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like I still think he's in the wrong, but you can definitely see how if he was preying on someone upset with the state of things, he could make it seem that um he was wronged and he could fix things as
Yeah,
opposed to
absolutely.
him being part of the problem that had to be locked away.
Mm-hmm.
So
Definitely.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
so
I
I
think
think
we just
that's
want to
it,
highlight,
right?
yeah, we're gonna have a few more posts going up. Like there's a interesting dialogue with Mogren and I think Venari, but
Mm-hmm.
that's more just like, oh, that's cool, they're talking. I
Mm-hmm.
think we want to highlight a few more interesting things in the live game before we talk about the earnings call and then the lawsuit developments.
Mm-hmm.
So, as a quick note, not a huge discussion point, but Covenant Pepes are available last week at Renown 56. You don't need anima for it. They're adorable. And yeah, I'm just really glad to see more Pepes, especially after it felt that for a while Blizzard was kind of downplaying cute things, like especially on the gear shop. We didn't really like the Pepes all seemed to disappear. Like a lot of cute plushies weren't really in stock. We didn't have Pepe costumes at Shadowlands launch.
Mm-hmm.
And now we do. So you know, all things considered, I am happy the art team made these Pepes, and the costumes are super elaborate. He's not just wearing a little hat, like his skin changes color. Um,
Color
his
and
eyes are
texture.
different
Yeah.
colors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's super cute.
Yeah, they're very detailed. I like them.
Yeah, so yeah. So yeah, more
Mm-hmm.
fun Pepes like this in game.
Indeed. The last bit
Um
of retail things here, or live game here, is
yeah.
a situation which actually became a topic on social media in general. So, the time walking situation. Apparently, when the time walking just went live, people were gaining a lot of experience and were sharing that with everyone, to then suddenly hear the update from Blizzard that that was in fact a mistake and the experience gained was then nerfed.
Yeah. So people were obviously unhappy with the change, fun detected, have to remove it. Um
Yep.
Fortunately, Blizzard did increase the amount of experience, again, not to the original buggy value, but somewhere in between. Um, People do feel that, uh, couldn't they have just, uh, you know, instead of super nerfing it and then going back, couldn't they have just communicated the change in advance and, done the more moderate thing to begin with as opposed to, like changing it day after day? Um,
Yeah.
I think brings a bigger question to account of people were thinking that leveling was too long. Clearly, it wasn't enjoyable. Yes, it's probably unintended that you do like one or two dungeons and you gain a level like that. That doesn't seem right. But if people were saying they were finally logging in again to level alts and do max level, there does seem to be like an underlying issue that people have with going from 50 to 60 in some form, whether it's like not fun or takes too long
Mm-hmm.
or I don't know, whatever reason. But people, or maybe the dungeons in their original form were definitely not giving enough. Um, so I think it's good that overall they decided the original amount was too low and they buffed it. But it does seem to kind of be like a roller coaster effect,
Oh,
and
yeah.
we um sort of had a similar issue with the shards of domination a few weeks ago where
Yep.
like stuff like suddenly changed and everyone was like really confused about it.
Mm-hmm. Like
um
nerfed, then unnerfed,
yeah,
and then, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I do
Uh,
think that they could make time walking more interesting in general. Like even with the loot awarded, people get really hype about it. Like if it lines up when the new raid opens, and then a month or two after, people are like, "This eye level stuff is like super bad. Like I don't, I'm not interested in a normal
mm-hmm.
mode Sanctum piece of loot 3 months into the patch." Um, so it seems that uh, they could make time walking a lot more hype if they added like more experience, more rewards over time to it, and maybe the crowd reaction is something that they should consider when looking to improve the leveling experience, because they did
Yeah.
Threads of Fate,
Mm-hmm.
and people still aren't super hype about Threads of Fate on alts, so maybe the reaction is it should be a sign to look at making leveling for alts um you know
Mm-hmm.
more engaging and less tedious, because yeah, probably it was bugged and giving too much experience, but it was making a lot of people actually log in, and clearly the original amount was not enough to the point where people weren't caring about it before.
Mm-hmm. I feel like I can somewhat understand domination, shard, nerfing, unnerfing, etc. being a little bit of a roller coaster because it's such a sensitive thing, but because it's related to player power. But I feel like something like time walking situation. I mean, how often do we have time walking? First of all, how many? How many?
Once every month, yeah,
Yeah.
or like,
So
yeah, not even, yeah.
so let's say the experience is too high. I think what Blizzard should have just done, because it's a temporary thing and it doesn't give any kind of
Mhm.
power either to anyone. It's simply an alt catch up thing. People who are leveling their first character probably won't even think about the fact that time walking is up there, right? So it's only an alt
Right.
thing, and they obviously felt like it's too powerful, not intended. If this is the thing, people will only do time walking for leveling and nothing else, which is fair. But since time walking is not always available, I think they should have just let it be for this event. They could have mentioned it, recognized it, and been like, "Hey, we know it's like giving too much experience, but we deciding to let it be for this event. I mean, for this like week, and the next time walking that happens, this will be nerfed." And that would give people like a heads up that hey, you are gaining way too much experience, more than you should, and people would also be ready for it to be nerfed next time. And in this time, no one is really gaining anything that would make anything unfair. And I think that would have made it fair for both sides. I think the player would have not felt robbed by it. And I think Blizzard would also, in the end, get to have the final product that they want to give this much experience and not like, too much. And yeah, I feel like sometimes these drastic decisions on things that matter so little in the larger schemes of things is kind of disappointing.
Yeah. I also think that because the expansion is taking longer to develop than people anticipated, um, we are, almost a year into the expansion, and we saw when COVID first hit, Blizzard started adding um, like experience reputation boosts to make things more interesting and friendly for alts.
Yeah.
And because
Mm-hmm.
COVID seems to have, dragged on, and now there's Delta, and the expansion has been out a while, it may
Mm-hmm.
make sense to just be like, yeah, we didn't plan on, uh, you know, 9-1 needing more lucrative alt catch-ups, but things have dragged on a bit. So yeah, we're gonna, make the time walking week kind of like a have fun leveling week, and we're gonna turn another holiday into
Yeah.
a, different type of sort of like help gear up your alts boost. Because
Mm-hmm.
when the patches are really spread out, you think about playing alts more, and if it's difficult to level alts, you're gonna probably go off and play a different game as opposed to sort of doing what you feel are chores.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think this was a perfect example of something that didn't need to be fixed so fast because it's not forever. It's just a week.
Yeah.
So
Or
let it be for that week.
they could have made a separate post just being like, "Hey, this was unintended.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But we also feel that the original value was too low, so we're going to go in between." I think that middle step of just seeing it buried in the hotfix is being like, "Oh, boop, all gone." I think a lot of people I think that middle step could have been
Mm-hmm.
uh erased.
Yeah, because that's the part that
Yeah.
makes people feel robbed on like a fun experience.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um But yeah, so just one more brief bit of news before we talk about the earnings call. Burning Crusade is on the PTR Phase 2, as expected, Serpent Shrine Cavern and the Eye, but also things like guild banks and a very basic looking for group tool and even Swift flight form. So this has been up for testing for like a week and a half now. People are wondering when we're going to get a phase 2 announcement. Uh, I'm almost
Yeah.
thinking that they might drop it around like Labor Day, especially with how New World is delayed. Like that would be
Oh,
my
when is
guess.
that?
So Labor Day is like usually right at the end of August, like this, like the first Monday in September.
Mm-hmm.
So my guess is that it's like a holiday for Americans, and they'd want to take advantage of that
Mm.
long weekend to do something. Especially
Yeah,
if
that yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Because it's true. Also, you
another
mentioned
game
New World.
spot. Might as well
Yeah,
drop something.
yeah. New World just gave that spot away, and then we have Diablo 2 later in September as well.
Hmm.
So we definitely can't see TBC at the end of September. That would be too messy, I think. So yeah, beginning of September could actually work.
Yeah, and we also learned that Diablo 2 Resurrected is having early access this weekend, and then open beta August 20 through 22nd. So,
Wow.
we could have 2 Diablo weekends and then like a phase 2 weekend. That could
Mm-hmm.
make sense.
Mm-hmm. Wait, so Diablo 2 early access is this weekend?
Yeah, they just announced it also this morning, right after the cinematic.
Oh,
And starting August 13th at 10 a.m., um, if you have pre-purchased Resurrected, you get to be in the early access test. And
so it's
then
a test.
August
You don't
20th,
keep the progress.
um, yeah, it's like a new beta. You
Okay.
don't keep the progress. And
No.
then the open beta weekend for everyone is
Right,
from
because the whole
August
thing is
20th
beta.
through
Yeah.
22nd. Yeah. Also, not all classes are available for testing yet, so it makes sense that your progress wouldn't carry over. The assassin and necromancer won't be available until the game officially launches on September 23rd.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, it's still a beta. I guess I'm still kind of looking forward to it, but I think I'm mainly looking forward to the main game because I played the last beta and I enjoyed it, but it feels bad that I can't like progress on my character, so to speak. But yeah, maybe I'll still play
Yeah.
some before then,
I mean, I
before it's
think
out.
overall Blizzard is trying to build hype around this because uh the public beta was so limited for only a few days that it set all those records because you had to log on and stream the game because it was only available for a very short amount of time.
True.
So I think that there's a lot of hype that it just hasn't been tested really,
Mm-hmm.
and people are excited to get in there, and they are adding 2 more classes to the testing, the druid and paladin.
Mm-hmm.
um
And open beta, you
so
said as well, right? So anyone can try.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I am happy that this seems to be going better than Warcraft 3 Reforged. People seem a
Yeah.
lot more hype about trying out the game. People think like the graphics are really good.
Yeah, because
The
because
features
they did it
haven't been
right.
stripped away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I
Um
still remember being mind blown. Yeah, we're talking about Diablo 2 here.
yeah.
Where when I pressed that bind that just switched it from modern, like the remade one, and
Mm.
the original, that smooth, it it's really nice, really well made.
Yeah, so I think that they definitely learn from this. And not to jump ahead too much, we'll get to it, but I think that if, Vicarious Visions, that was run by Jen O'Neill, did Diablo 2, and now she's one of the co-leaders of Blizzard, I think you can make a case that, old Blizzard, made Reforged, and the person now in charge of Blizzard, their studio helped make Diablo 2 Resurrected. It's like, well, you know,
Well,
that's
yep,
probably
that's
in good
pretty
hands.
good.
Like that gives me
Yeah,
confidence. So,
yeah, yeah,
um,
definitely.
but yeah, why don't we talk about the conference call first? We're
Mm-hmm.
gonna we're and like industry stuff. We'll highlight the like the actual industry news, and then when we discuss the lawsuit afterwards, we'll talk about the lawsuit related things that popped up in the conference call. But because there was still some like actual interesting industry things separate from
Mm-hmm.
that, such as World of Warcraft is currently working on 2 mobile games that are in internal testing now. So they're pretty far along to be in internal
Your voice
testing.
is popping a bit. I'm not sure
Hmm.
if it comes out on stream like that as well. But it sounds like your
Oh
voice
no.
is or your microphone is popping.
Huh. Um, should I like adjust any knobs or move it
I'm
farther
wondering if
away or
maybe move it closer if it's possible.
okay. Uh,
Yeah,
okay.
let's see.
All right. Testing 1 2 3.
Hmm. If stream can't notice, then we could just ignore it. So just a quick check. Do you guys hear this? The popping on her voice? They don't hear anything. It's just me. Go ahead.
Okay.
We're
All
good
right.
then. Yep.
Yeah. So,
Yes.
two mobile titles are far along in development that they are in internal testing, which is interesting. How we're gonna have two different genres of Warcraft mobile
Yeah.
games.
Yeah, what does
So,
that mean? We've talked about
yeah.
mobile games for World of Warcraft before, and we did have this idea of potential pet battles or
Hmm.
something to do with pets in general. Maybe something similar to Pokemon Go, but the World of Warcraft version. But if
Yeah.
it's not related to pets, and surely they wouldn't make two games related to pets, what would the
Right.
second be?
Yeah. Let's look up top mobile games 2021. No, I'm curious. Like, I mean, so I'm seeing you know, PUBG, 8 Ball Pool, Genshin Impact, Among Us. Wait, is this right? I'm just thinking of different genres that are out
Mm-hmm.
there. Um, but yeah, I could see them, doing a Pokemon Go thing, and then something that's like, I don't know, like uh, something in a
Hmm.
different genre out there. You can even play League of Legends on your phone. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
What was the
So,
wording? They said, was it Warcraft themed?
yeah, they said
Two
finding
Warcraft
the exact
mobile
quote.
experiences. Oh, I'm not sure if this is the exact quote.
Yeah. They just said, two mobile Warcraft titles in internal testing.
Yeah.
So, um, and I
Hmm.
think that it would be Hearthstone isn't billed as like a Warcraft mobile game, it's their own thing. So my guess is that, these would not be trying to do unique takes on the lore and be more strictly in the original Warcraft universe.
Yeah.
So,
Wait. So Hearthstone is using a lot of the Warcraft universe as well, but you mean that you think this new game would be more similar in more ways than just the universe?
yeah, I mean, I think that if, Hearthstone, you can play it on mobile, but it's never branded as like a Warcraft, universe, like mobile experience. It's Hearthstone,
Yeah.
like its own
Mm-hmm.
separate thing. So I think if they're talking about, two Warcraft titles in development, it would be more with the original game. It wouldn't be like, oh, let's, reimagine Illidan or like Kel'Thuzad running an academy with, with his cat. It would be like a more using elements straight from the Warcraft story as opposed to
Mm-hmm.
trying to like do a playful um alternate inspired take on it.
Mm-hmm.
But I
Yeah.
don't think there's going to be stuff like, do like win your Warcraft go pet battle, and then if you like win 100, you get a pet in the actual game. I don't think it's going to be tied like that. I just think it's going to be um, like set more closely in the Warcraft universe.
Do you think they'll be connected? Oh, my cat.
I mean, they have done cross promotions before between games. Like if you won 3 Hearthstone games, you got a mount in World of Warcraft, or
I
if
remember
you
that.
like hit level 20 in WoW, you got the Blood Elf portrait hero. So I think that they could definitely do crossovers to get people to play. They even did that with Heroes of the Storm. If you won a bunch of games, you got that fiery horse mount.
Do you think it could be a situation of where progression is shared in any way?
I don't think that would be the case. Um, I feel like people would be really upset if that was the case. But yeah, I don't think that would be coming
Mm-hmm.
to the game. I think they would keep it as separate experiences as well. Also, I mean, just for revenue, like if these were like offshoots of the main game, I think it would get like really messy trying to balance things on like mobile and then the main game. Like if you could do something in the mobile game, that would affect something on the desktop game. Like suppose it was easier to do it on mobile instead of the
Yeah, then it's a
desktop way.
balancing issue as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but if they do it all separate, then, you can like monetize them all differently, and
Mm-hmm.
have different progression systems. And if you do different genres, then you can reach a wider array of gamers. Like if you
Mm-hmm.
have one that's just solely for pet battles, you're going to appeal to the Pokemon crowd and hook them in. But if you start saying, well, this is like pet battles, but also like Call of Duty, but also Among Us, but also do this for your Great Vault, then you're going to lose some people.
Yeah. I wonder, so the mission table that we have now
Mhm.
has changed almost every expansion, from
Yeah.
one form to another. And it started with, I think, the garrison, unless it was before
Mhm.
then.
Yeah, the
Um,
Garrison was the first.
and I remember thinking when we saw I think it was the Shadowlands version, which started, looking animated in the sense that they started hitting each other, like in
Mhm.
Hearthstone. It reminded you of Hearthstone. So I
Yeah.
wonder if that mission table will become like a full scale game of some sort, and maybe would explain why we're seeing so many updates to it, because it's gonna have its own side game. Do you think that's
I
possible?
mean, I think that that could be interesting, and it also would be trying to reuse the tech in instead of like always reinventing the wheel, like having that have replayability. That could be something. Um,
Hmm.
because yeah, its
Maybe it's
role
too
has
similar to
changed over the
Hearthstone though.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it could be more of like an auto battler. Um, that could be something like set up your teams in advance and like watch them then fight it
Mm-hmm.
out.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
but yeah,
they
I
definitely.
could
Mm-hmm.
see that. Also, the mission table, um, like it was really central to the garrison, and the story was tied around getting followers, and it's felt more and more disconnected as time has gone on. So
Yeah,
maybe it's
I don't
not
know
as
why we still
needed.
have it.
Yeah, maybe it's like not, it can have a second life as a separate game,
Yeah.
as opposed to like, oh well, we got to do this because maybe you'll get the Soul Ash mission, and this will help your legendary.
Yeah, I don't feel
Yeah.
like the experience has improved much. Well, it's improved in the sense that we don't have 1,000 followers to collect, like back in WoD. That was really bad. Um,
Yeah.
it's a lot more concise now, but it doesn't feel needed. So
Yeah.
it's interesting that it does still stay with us, and I wonder
Mhm.
if that is because it's like a subtle nod towards a potential mobile game, which is very similar to it. Maybe.
Yeah. Another interesting line from these slides were first off, Blizzard has slightly declined in MAU, which
Yeah.
is concerning because, they uh less users if their money is going up, but the users are going down. That means that they're getting more money per subscriber, but they're not getting fresh blood into the
Mm-hmm.
game.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with the pandemic, like we've seen a lot of people return to video games. So the fact that they are losing MAU during the pandemic is not great.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had this like very formal sounding World of Warcraft net bookings again grew a double-digit percentage year over the year, driven by the launch of Burning Crusade Classic. Subscriber numbers and hours played were higher following the release, and they also said something to the effect that uh, stronger engagement this year than is typical outside of a modern expansion year. So, of course, people like to read between the lines and they're saying, oh, engagement means you're, you know, making me like log on more because I'm frustrated with, shards of domination or like this, these systems are, Activision is telling Blizzard how to develop their systems to, encourage people to log on more, even if it's, no longer fun. But, Final Fantasy, they say it's okay to take, breaks in between playing. So
Mm-hmm.
statements like this, I don't think help World of Warcraft, even though to an
Nope.
investor, then the investor will be like, wow, doing great, wow, everything is up. But to a player reading this, it sounds very um, corporate speech and kind of masterminding.
Yep. No, absolutely. I think both of those statements there under World of Warcraft is basically just trying to win over the shareholders. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if you say that there's been stronger engagement this year, that sounds good. And and if you take
Yeah.
note of what it says exactly, it says then it's typical outside of a modern expansion year. it's like, okay, so which ones have you compared it to? Because it's only recently that WoW now has 2 games for the same
Mm-hmm.
subscription. So,
Yeah.
you'd hope that there's stronger engagement because now it's 2 games, not just one. But this isn't pointed out to the shareholders. And then we also have the double-digit percentage driven by the launch of Burning Crusade Classic. As a WoW player,
Like,
now we're gonna be like, oh, well, they wanted to make this statement, and that's why TBC was rushed because we didn't even want
yeah,
it on June 1st. But this
right.
is clearly why, because they wanted to be able to put a stat like this, which says double-digit percentage increase. And so the 26 million Mao, imagine that number without TBC randomly
Mm-hmm.
being thrown in like that. The beta came out of nowhere, the release came out of nowhere, together with the collector's edition, which was massive,
Yeah,
and
aka the net bookings. It's like, oh look, we increased all of the services and amount of money we raised, because
yeah.
we threw in all these passes and collector's editions that
Hmm.
we did for classic launch. We did all this extra stuff to
Hmm.
cram that in before quarter 2.
And we talked about it at the time. We were wondering why this is rushed, and maybe it's to make Q2 look better. And now we see that,
Hmm.
yeah, it is indeed. Because, sure, the numbers are better than last year in the same quarter, but last year in the same quarter didn't have, TBC around the corner. So that does
Right.
make this look very worrying if it's, a potential 10% increase, maybe a little bit more than that, probably not much more, um, then it's kind of worrying. It's not looking good at all, but of course it sounds good to the shareholders.
Right. And this is the cornerstone of their success. I mean, Blizzard also has the Burning Crusade success is carrying um, the other games. We have Hearthstone, we have Diablo, we have Overwatch 2. They're just saying, "Oh, Overwatch 2 development passed an important internal milestone. Uh, we look forward to revealing more of the game in the coming months." Um, so, we're saying that WoW is maybe not in great shape as far as hooking people in, but it's putting out some content for people to play while all the other games are still, in development in some form. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and they also announced that Diablo Immortal was delayed to the first half of 2022. So looking ahead for quarterly stuff, it's like, okay, well, I guess Diablo Resurrected is going to be, the highlight of quarter 3, and they're going to move Diablo Immortal to some other quarter that was meant to be dead to have that, boost things up.
Mm-hmm.
uh, but yeah, I mean, I do feel bad for the employees because before the lawsuit broke, there was, all that discussion that the salaries weren't competitive, or people thought they were going to make a lot when there was a lot of player interest during the pandemic, but then the bonuses weren't as high because uh, the things went down towards the end of the year, and it was all, oh, 2021 will have all this Diablo stuff. So I feel bad if now people thought they were gonna have like a nicer bonus with Immortal coming out, and now that got delayed. So in addition to the lawsuit making it an unpleasant working environment, one of the games that was touted as like, oh, we're going to do really well 2021 is now moved to 2022.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, but yeah, the last thing I want to highlight before we move into the lawsuit discussion is around the time of the earnings call, Blizzard opened up a bunch of positions on World of Warcraft, notably 3 for the combat team,
Mm-hmm.
which historically is fairly small. I don't know the exact number, but sort of when a position opens up, it's like because someone left, and it was very notable in that 3 positions opened up for the team, and these were not replacement positions. These were 100% expanding the team, which
Yeah, that's really
I think
good.
was met with a lot of positivity,
Mm-hmm.
because especially going back to like, shards, the change happening without communication.
Yeah, like people get so
Yeah.
frustrated.
Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted
So
you.
I think, oh no, I think with Shadowlands launch being delayed, um, and Blizzard kind of hinting in their statement that that was kind of due to the complexity of the endgame systems. I think that it's clear that more people are needed on this team for several reasons. One, because of the pandemic, making that part of the game difficult to fine tune. But also because there's a lot of sort of fundamental issues I think the WoW team needs to reckon with, with the borrowed power systems, with a lot of resources being spent, balancing a system only to make it good right before it goes away, and then like your hard work vanishes, like, corruption and the vendor, or like artifact weapons getting good in the final patch after, months of bumps with, upgrading them in balance. Um, and or like recently with the shard situation, how that wasn't communicated
Mm-hmm.
in advance, or people thinking that only a few classes can get revamps in a patch or expansion, maybe there's not enough time for all of them. So I definitely think it's good that they are trying to permanently expand the team in this role,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
especially with how they're like, oh, gameplay first. It's like, the gameplay and the class tuning needs to be really solid if that's what they're emphasizing, in World of Warcraft.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so
Yeah, I think that's
yeah.
huge positive news
Mm.
for anyone who wants to still have hope regardless of what happened, that the devs can pull together and create something good still. And especially if we're able to, with all these fighting and things that we've done now in the past 2 weeks, especially the people who
Mm.
are still working there, hopefully we can see the result of that becoming positive for everyone.
Yeah, I also think fresh blood is good. Sort of a sort of ongoing theme with the lawsuit is a lot of old school people stepping down, or old school
Mm-hmm.
people that were venerated now being implicated as part of the problem, either participating in something or kind of being aware but not doing anything to stop it. So I think that having fresh blood from uh, different perspectives
Is
is
good.
important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I remember us being upset whenever we'd read about anyone leaving the company. But
Yeah.
now, I don't think anyone will be upset anymore. I think now we're kind of done with the people who've been working there for a long time, because the longer you've worked there, the higher the chances that you knew what was going on, And
Mm.
clearly, maybe you weren't able to, of course. There's always people who weren't able to make a difference in that as well. But fresh blood cannot be wrong, at least in that sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and like while not as shocking or difficult to read as the harassment side of the allegations, like so many employees have been coming forward, being like, "Hey, there was this really strange process how stuff got done at Blizzard, or there were definitely, office politics, or people throwing each other under the bus, and a lot of things that show that maybe it was not the most productive working environment,
Mm-hmm.
or one in which people could share new ideas. Like it seems that some teams were great, but other teams, there was a lot of really stressful politics going on, especially
Mm-hmm.
when you consider that people felt they were underpaid, so they're
Yeah.
sort of forced to like fight against each other to
Mm-hmm.
get more money.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that fresh blood is also people can question and be like, why are you running things this way? Like, at my other game studio, we did things differently.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that this is uh, a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's also good that, I mean, I don't know who's in charge, but that the team got budget control to expand in this direction.
Yep.
That,
Mm-hmm.
the higher ups currently realize that this is an area of the game that, Blizzard prides themselves on. They've got the raids are in great shape. They're trying to do more with Mythic Plus and PvP.
Mm-hmm.
Final Fantasy is known for the story. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems more like story and like collection driven. But the new raids aren't as hype as like Race to World First. The culture surrounding DPS meters and add-on is very different. So
Oh yeah.
it's like if
Mm-hmm.
WoW is known for um,
The competitive.
creative gameplay, they should make sure it's, playing to their strengths and making sure that's invested in properly.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So,
Uh, exactly. If you look at the competitive
yeah.
aspect of things, then it's quite embarrassing that these nerfs and unnerfs happen in such a short time period, with something that's so core and crucial to damage. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And I think like there definitely has to be Brightpaw, no. There has to be Brightpaw. He's trying to bring up my Discord preferences. No, move your butt, Brightpaw. Um I'm still connected, right?
Yeah, you're
Um,
here.
yeah. I mean, I think that since Legion, we've seen all of these temporary systems pop up, and artifact weapons were rocky at the start. I think people like them now because they remember the 735 version where everyone's just like super
Mm-hmm.
powerful with a bunch of cool things, but it was not a good start at the beginning of the expansion. And then,
Mm-hmm.
in BFA, we had like Azerite, and then like Azerite essences to fix the Azerite, and then the corruptions, which were like buffed and nerfed a lot as an experiment, and then we had the corruption vendor, which kind of fixed it, but I don't know why they were on a rotation. And now in Shadowlands, we've got the Covenant system, which I don't know how that would continue into, another expansion. So we
Yep.
have all these, and then we've got shards now, and all these things seem to take a really long time to set up and balance properly, and sometimes they get to a good spot by the end of the patch, but then they're like removed because they're
Mm-hmm.
only intended to be good for one patch. So I think that's just something that Blizzard needs to sit down and be like, is this the best use of our resources to create things like a system that goes away after a patch, or even our stories and leveling content, these are things that you can skip most of now. Like, how do we make our old systems and content relevant in general, because we've created a lot of it, but then we make it obsolete.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of the old content would actually still be playable. Like, for example, I don't know if you remember the different ranks that you could get on the essences. What were they called? Not
Yeah.
ranks.
Rank 1, the Azerite essences.
Yeah. And I
Yeah, rank
remember
1 through
trying to
4.
get all of them, and I remember in the end that there was
Oh
one
yeah,
that I could
Paragon
not get.
box. Yeah,
Yeah,
the H3
because it was from
Paragon
a
box one.
Paragon box. Yeah. And, like, why remove it? Why not let people
Yeah.
go back and get it? It doesn't have to give you power or anything, but let people go back to the old content and farm it if they want to.
And going back to time walking, like, Blizzard's trying to highlight this old content, make it really awesome so people get to see these new raids, maybe have like a easy mode leveling version, and another, hey, you can do these raids in their difficult form.
Mm-hmm.
Do two versions of that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, all this is to say, I think it's a good thing that Blizzard is trying to hire and bring fresh blood for part of the game that um, has definitely felt like it's been understaffed for a while, especially as tools get more sophisticated, um, and community figures, like they'll stream like the testing and point out if something seems imbalanced. Sometimes it seems that like some bugs are addressed, but there's not enough time or resources to handle all of them as quickly as people would like. So yeah, I definitely think that this is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I wish them luck in filling the positions, and I hope that they are paid well,
Yes.
because we still know that
Well, now that they're
Blizzard is
under
not.
scrutiny, then they
Yeah,
won't dare do as badly as they've done, at least. So that's one good thing. I guess
yeah.
one
I mean,
comfort knowing that.
Blizzard was also saying, we want to make sure we have perspectives, diverse hires, but it's also like, you're sort of located in this remote area of California in, like a pre-planned city, suburbia, and
Yep.
if you want people from a variety of backgrounds or experience to hire, and while many people are trying to work remote, Blizzard's like, oh, fully in the office, it might get kind of you may be discouraging a lot of people from applying that like where they live or are looking for places that let them work remotely some days, especially if they have a family,
Mm-hmm.
or prefer like a city environment because it's like more lively, more culture. Then moving to this kind of, honestly, having lived there, kind of like creepy, robotic, overpriced area. So
Mm-hmm.
definitely think that the location of Blizzard is not in their favor, but
Mm-hmm.
they have to start and try somewhere to improve things. So it's a start.
Yeah, no, it's a start indeed. And it's kind of hard to see as well from our perspectives now with everything coming out now. But honestly, it somewhat was a start a year ago when Afrasiabi was resigned. Although
Yeah.
like it wasn't done, properly in the sense like he still kept a lot of
Hmm.
things, his own references in the game and all that stuff, and all the other people who were involved were never really called out for anything. Um, but like that was one start of clearing out, I guess, the trash at the
Hmm.
company, and I think with people now also realizing that the old Blizzard may not be exactly what we thought it was, um,
Hmm.
is also giving us a bit more hope for the new fresh blood. I mean, imagine if you're working at a company and even if you haven't done the bad things, but you see these bad things happening or you've heard of the bad things happening, why would you then try harder to like improve it if it risks your own job, right? It's only
Yeah,
now.
especially if you are at the bottom of the totem pole and like you are more
Yeah.
underpaid. Um, like you don't want to suddenly be fired or, blacklisted from the industry by this very wealthy and, charismatic person way above you.
Mm-hmm. So the fact that this is now like public and that people have dared to share their stories online and everywhere, I think that makes it a lot harder for people to sit there and just happily abuse others and think that they're going to get away with it anyways.
Yeah, and it's like even if people are going to worry that like there's a lot of new blood or inexperience on the team, like it has to be better than the old situation where people are under duress and dealing with like cubicle crawls and like unwanted touching. Like you can't focus when that sort of stuff is going on. Like that's not going to
Yeah.
yield good results if you like constantly feel threatened and stressed.
Mm-hmm.
um
And going from that
so yeah.
and in the topic of the lawsuit,
I
we had some pretty big news since the last show, which was that J. Allen Brack is, maybe not surprising to some people, but is officially stepping down. This was announced officially, and we also we also got some information on who will take over, and it's not going to be one person; it's going to be two people. It's going to be replaced by Mike Ibarra and Jen O'Neill as co-leaders.
Yeah, so I am cautiously optimistic about this announcement because they both have strong track records in their various fields of development. I'm moving the cat. Goodbye,
Right,
Grandpa.
Paul.
Um,
Yeah, so
um,
far, people have
yeah,
been, rightly so, been very adamant on finding out who are these two people and
yeah.
are they going to do a good job? Do they care about the people? Do they care about the game? And so far, everything that people have dug up has been positive.
Yeah, so to recap, Mike Barra was the former corporate vice president from Xbox and previously the executive vice president at Blizzard. He joined Blizzard pretty recently. And then Jen O'Neill was the former studio head of Vicarious Visions, who we mentioned did a great job with Diablo 2. Um, and she sort of worked her way up from Activision and then joined Blizzard when Vicarious Visions was merged into it. So they both have they're both co-leads. They both have very different backgrounds, so I think it's good to have two people with different strengths and experience.
Mm-hmm.
um and they both seem well respected in their fields while also being a breath of fresh air. I think that if you try to hire someone from old Blizzard from within, you just have more skeletons in the closet and people wondering uh how much these people were covering up. And sort of like we said, if old Blizzard, created Warcraft 3 Reforged, and the new Blizzard leadership has a track record of putting out really solid products, meeting
Yeah.
deadlines,
Mm-hmm.
I think, I think that's a positive thing.
I think that
I
comparison
also,
is actually
yeah.
great. Diablo 2 and then comparing it to Warcraft Reforged and what difference it was between the two teams. And yeah, I think that's a great example of that.
Yeah, I also think Mike Ybarra has a Twitter account and he's always posting about like Mythic Plus and rating, which
Yeah,
while it doesn't, point to his skills being a leader, I think it's cool that he seems relatable. He definitely seems passionate
passionate about the game. Yeah.
about Blizzard games. I think he mentioned at one point he was like the biggest Diablo fan ever.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, he seems to like playing World of Warcraft. You could argue, oh well, if he likes Shadowlands, does he understand the game? But I think it's a good thing. It makes him
Oh,
uh
people.
relatable, less
Yeah.
corporate. So I think
Mm-hmm.
he's like deliberately posting that, but good for him. I think that he's trying to show
I
that
mean, he
yes,
posted it
he's new
before this
blood.
happened, right? He
Yeah,
wouldn't
we were
know.
digging up his old tweets. Yeah.
Yeah, like
Um,
it's not like he was now announced and then he quickly just tweeted about Mythic
yeah.
Plus. Like it was an older tweet, so it was very fair and random of him to post it. And I think it's really nice because it basically showed him doing +20s and doing +20s. At this point when the patch is not that old still means that he plays the game properly, not just logging in every now and again. I think
Yeah.
a lot of the people who have been behind Blizzard since day one and working over there, I think a lot of them don't play the game anymore. Maybe they log in
Mm.
sometimes, but I don't think any of them, or well, I can't say not any of them. I think many of them play at a casual level where they might sometimes join a ready-made group to go through some of the content.
Yeah.
But him sitting there and grinding through getting his +20s is is a big sign of him being passionate about the game, and
Yeah,
I
I
think
think it's
that's
good
nice
that
to
it shows
see.
like he's taking pride in the games his studio is putting out, and he's investing time in them.
Mm-hmm.
What stood out more to me, different things stand out to different people, but he specifically had a tweet using the walkout hashtag and saying he was there. So to me, I think
Yeah,
that sends a really good message to the employees. Let me
definitely.
see if I
Yeah,
can.
like if I was working there, I'd feel comfortable, knowing that he's above there.
Yeah. He said, it was a great attending the ActiBliz walkout this morning. Happy to see so many familiar faces. Together, let's build a safe, brighter, and fair future for everyone. And
Mm-hmm.
this came out before he was announced to take over. So yeah, I definitely think that that's really positive. Like he here is a person that was high up standing with workers that had been wrong. He didn't take the Fran Townsend route. He wasn't like, "Oh, I'm new and this didn't happen to me. Things are great." He,
Oh
seems to be
God, yeah.
a good, listener with empathy in attending the walkout. So I think that sent a very good message
Mm-hmm.
to the employees.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I also wanted to highlight Jen O'Neill because I feel like people aren't talking about her as much. But I found this interesting article. I didn't put in the. I'll just drop it in now. I don't think we need to
Mm-hmm.
screen cap it. But if you want to look at it quickly,
Mm-hmm.
Shonda Land did this article on her last year with the headline Jennifer O'Neill is on a mission for more female advancement in video games. As the first and only female
Mm.
studio head at Activision, O'Neill has made diversity and inclusion both on screen and off a priority. And it's this profile of her. It was very interesting. It was talking how she had a background of being like a professional ballerina and how she developed focus that way, and then how she got into playing video games, working as a flight attendant, and then took a job at Activision because she was spending so much time, playing video games while on the flights. And it's a
Mm.
very interesting thing. She was talking about how she recognized that there were like a boys' club at Activision, how she rose to the ranks with Vicarious Visions, and even gave this really interesting example of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2, how she was advocating when doing the remaster to include more diversity, more characters from different backgrounds, different body types, genders, ethnicities to the mix, so it wasn't just young white skateboarders. It was showing how the community had evolved and was more diverse decades later. And she was able to get the budget to keep all the original characters and then add the more diverse characters she wanted as well.
As additional.
So I think that's a positive sign how she kept the characters people were familiar with, but then was also sensitive that of the audience interested in skateboard games now, it had changed over the years, and people should be able to find themselves reflected in those characters. So I thought that seemed to be a good way to do it that wasn't like super, heavy-handed.
Yeah,
So
because
I
I do
like
feel
reading
like
about that in the article.
some games or movie sequels or series or books or anything really sometimes does make that mistake where they feel like they need to go for inclusivity, but then they remove parts of what was originally there, and that's also a mistake because people may have loved whatever characters that were there before, and you taking that away to make space for others, like the thought is nice, but it's not nice for anyone who was there before because now you're
Yeah,
excluding
like
the
if you
people
saw
who,
yourself in
yeah,
like a character and it's removed, then that doesn't feel good for you. So,
no, exactly. So
um,
that's an
yeah,
awesome approach. And
yeah,
yeah, it says
and
here that she was the first and only female studio head at Activision, and this was a year ago.
yeah. So I think that this article was really promising, and I think that she gets results, and her way of leading a studio was very effective, as well as, getting more budget for something and then delivering on it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really impressed reading this article about her.
Yeah, I'm actually feeling really
Um,
hopeful with both Jen and Mike here.
Yeah, I think that their different backgrounds, play off the different offerings Blizzard had, like Mike from a more like service background, like more BattleNet driven, and then Jen, getting the games remaster out, leading a successful studio. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a good thing. I know there has been some discussion of the term co-leads versus president.
Yeah.
And does that mean that Blizzard will have less control? But it's tough, right? Because I feel that Blizzard's old structure
Oh, Perk disappeared. All right, we'll wait for her to get back. I think what Perk was about to say, about to mention here on the whole idea of.
did not.
Oh, you're kind of back. Hi,
Hey,
can you hear me?
oh, yeah, I can hear. I heard you throughout the whole thing.
Oh, really? Okay,
Um,
you just disappeared
yeah,
for me then. Let's see.
I had
Let's quickly
a
change
latency
server.
spike, but I think it's fine now. So
Could you change the server to central?
yeah, yeah.
And then I think I should be able to show you. Okay, let's see. Yeah, okay. You want to say something?
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Okay, yes, we can hear and see you now.
Cool. So yeah, I was just saying
Um,
that
yeah,
the
the
old
titles.
structure. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
to Activision, the old structure did
Oh, I'm gone again.
not work.
Um,
I don't know why is it doing this.
exact on the same statement. Oh no. You want to try again?
Yeah,
I can hear you now.
yeah. Okay. Discord really does not want me to talk about the Blizzard president. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so
It's
the structure.
yeah. So like Activision and Blizzard is probably thinking, we let Blizzard sort of do their own thing, have its own president. This clearly, is leading to bad PR for us. Being more independent and also, not getting the results on time, or maybe they were too separated off from the parent company. So I think by changing the wording to co-leads, I think it's like sort of integrating them more in with the main company, or having the leads sound like they're representatives of Blizzard that report to Activision, as opposed to the
Doing
old
their own
structure. I
thing.
think I also like co-leads better. Like, it sounds more, I don't know, like community, like people working together, like you're the leader of a project, as opposed to
Mm-hmm.
like the rockstar president.
Yeah,
So
I think
um
there could be having that
yeah.
in thought when making a decision like that with a title change. Also, I think in the past, because I think one of the biggest worries that people have is that now that they're co leads and not president anymore, now Blizzard has less say in things. Um, but Blizzard being more Blizzard did not lead to anything good, as we've seen, in terms of people's work conditions and also how people were treated in and out of office as well. So maybe having some more structure around that regard will improve that.
Yeah, I mean, we got WoW token and like Dark Portal Pass when there was a president, so
Yeah,
you know how much. It's like, what can we get with a co-lead that we haven't
that we
had
haven't
with a
experienced
president?
already.
Yeah,
At least now, if we get something equivalent to another Dark Portal Pass or WoW token, at least the work conditions and that type of harassment will be
yeah,
more scrutinized.
hopefully,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, one thing I would like to see is, we obviously had this Blizzard statement rushed out before the conference call, and I believe both leaders spoke to the shareholders, but the shareholders are so weird. Like, they ask questions like, will the productivity and morale improve, or like, nice quarter with Call of Duty, guys, and you're just like, are these people like reading the same news I am? So their replies felt a little stilted and not super natural. So I think it would be good if they can make a statement like introducing themselves to the players, using language that would resonate with players of all Blizzard games, as opposed to sounding kind of businessy, using a lot of jargon for the shareholders who work for banks and are not very
You mean the
different from the
you mean the
players.
presenters
Yeah.
of the earnings call?
Yeah, like they said a few words in the earnings call, in the question and answer section. But
Mm.
that was sort of the only statement I've heard from them, and like it wasn't a bad statement. It was just, when the shareholders are saying things like, "Oh, like really great, recent performance," and you're like, "Well, like great? I would not use the last month as great." It's just,
Well,
the
yeah.
wording is in such a way that appeals to the shareholder,
Mm.
who has very different concerns than the average player right now, I feel.
Well, maybe Activision
So,
feels like this earnings call isn't for you as a player, anyways.
oh
So
yeah, no, I totally don't think it's for us as a player. So I think it would be good if they could make a separate, like, welcoming statement to the
on the
players,
state of
talking
things.
about,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
talking about something they're doing, or like saying they're sorry, or
Mm-hmm.
sympathizing, talking about some past things they did, like I learned about, Quick because I dug through his tweets that he attended the walkout, but I think that if there was a post explaining how they feel passionately about this, how they've worked for change, some things they've done, that could reach a much bigger audience.
That's true, actually. That is true. I
Yeah.
think Blizzard has always been pretty lacking with communication. I think sometimes they have.
Really? Yeah.
I think
God.
sometimes they
Yeah.
have their like
Yeah.
moments of where there's a lot of communication, and it normally lasts a few weeks, and then it's like radio silence for a few months.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it could be. I think it could actually be a really good time to give even a daily update at this point.
Yeah. Another thing, we have a whole little section on people stepping down. The next bit of news on people stepping down is
Yeah.
Frances Townsend, but you have to read the full sentence. She has stepped down as executive sponsor of the ABK Women's Network. She is still hired by Blizzard.
Yeah. So
So
in contrast, J. Allen Brack has properly stepped down, and he's out of Blizzard then, right?
yeah, he's
Yeah.
pursuing new opportunities.
Mm-hmm. And Frances Townsend stepping down as leader of ABK, but she's still at the company, which I believe a lot of people are not happy with. But at least she's stepped down of something.
Yeah,
I
there's a very
guess.
weird timeline from this. So like it's interesting. So the Activision Blizzard employees wrote a statement on July 26th calling for Frances Townsend to step down. So when this news broke, when the Washington Post got confirmation she stepped down on August 6th, people were like, cool, we had one of our demands listened to. But in reality, as this article has discovered, she stepped down quietly on July 23rd. So this, again, going back to communication,
Oh.
like, like she stepped down, the larger employees didn't know about this, put that as a demand, and when we covered the news, I had employees being like, oh, like, we just learned about this from Wowhead. Like, like, I read this from the Washington Post. Like, cool, she stepped down. I had no idea. So it just shows how
But then it
the
wasn't
different.
it wasn't due to demand.
Right, yeah, she did this before the letter was drafted, and apparently no one knew about this until, the Washington Post got confirmation she'd stepped down.
Yeah.
So that just shows how messy
Communication.
things are. Like,
Yeah.
maybe she told Activision leadership she stepped down, but that didn't make its way over to Blizzard. So yeah, it just shows how messy communication is between the various divisions.
What was the reason for the stepping down?
So in the open we don't know the reason. But she apparently, based on a statement that the company put out, it was she believes in doing what's right for the network and will continue to support and advance the work of the network as best she can. And she also reported reported that she blamed the bad language of her statement on legal counsel telling her that she needed to use certain wording to be in accordance with proper legal things, and that the end result no longer sounded much like her voice. So
Yeah.
she's kind of
That's a
throwing the
good
legal team under the bus.
excuse.
Yeah, but then she gets on social media on Saturday night and starts tweeting out articles that whistleblowing is bad and starts blocking employees. So any sympathy she could have built up by, the legal team being evil is, evaporating
Yeah.
as she's blocking employees on her, I mean, like, why did she even have a Twitter? Like, I thought people that were so high up had, an assistant, or they learned not to tweet because you'd get scrutinized. But it's like 10 p.m.
That's
Saturday night, and
true.
she's just blocking
That's true.
employees, and then she deleted her Twitter. So
Yeah. Oh, that's actually a shitstorm.
yeah, so
I mean,
that
yeah, the
was
excuse is
yeah.
so bad, but yeah, she could have just stuck with that and stayed quiet.
Or she could have tweeted, if I listen to the demands, I'm stepping down. Like, she could have tweeted some
True.
neutral, positive PR,
Yeah.
but instead we have this
She could have
very
announced her stepping
confusing
down.
timeline of events.
She could have announced her stepping down and made it seem like a sort of heroic act, but instead, no, she's too proud. I don't know what's wrong with people sometimes, but yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it's
a
like
real shame.
it's like sometimes you see celebrities and they just like, like they just tweet stuff and you're just like, why? Like, like, why don't you just like retire or just not tweet, or like hire someone to tweet? Like, don't you have an assistant? Like, why are you just squandering
Yeah.
your remaining goodwill? Is it like a power rush or something?
Yeah, and then blocking actual employees as well.
Yeah, it's like, is she that out of touch with the with her company? Like, does she not understand
Yeah.
how PR works? Like, you should not be blocking people doing that.
She had in her previous things worked in sort of terrorism departments, right? I think was like some of her
Um,
background.
yeah, she worked under the White House. Um, and yeah, she was associated with
So it blows my mind that
yeah,
somebody who works with such like serious positions then goes
yeah,
ahead and works for a gaming company, because I feel like
yeah.
usually people who've seen very very serious sides of the world end up seeing like day-to-day problems as petty, and I think that could maybe be part of why she doesn't sympathize with anyone, because
Yeah,
like
she
you
was
guys are
former
stupid.
Homeland Security Advisor for George W. Bush from 2004 to 2007.
Yeah,
So,
I feel like it's not a good thing to have like very, invested political people get involved with these companies where they will be tone deaf to normal people feelings, you know?
yeah, I mean, obviously she has a lot of experience, but not related to, uh, in the games industry.
Yeah, no, she
So,
has experience with politics, and we know
yeah,
how politics can very much, ignore emotions. So just feels like weird. But
yeah.
yeah.
And we've got another person who left. The head of Global Human Resources, Jesse Meshuk. I don't know how to say his last name. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and this came about after Axios wrote this really scathing report that, just made HR look really bad.
Yep.
Because throughout the whole lawsuit starting, we've had people being like, why is Blizzard telling me to go to HR? They totally failed me. HR was, partying in the area where Fraziabi was being drunk and creepy on people. HR, I went to HR and then then I stopped advancing at Blizzard. And this
Yep.
one part just sounded so bad. It was another current employee with the company for over 5 years tells Axios that after she was physically assaulted by one employee, her report to HR is met with instant skepticism. One of the things the HR rep commented on was that she was surprised I wasn't crying or I wasn't more hysterical. Blizzard encouraged her to work from home or switch departments, a move that felt like punishment. When she spoke to HR again, a representative told her he's really sorry and he really wants to work at Blizzard and he says that you were really friendly with him. So I think that quote is
Mm,
also interesting because the HR rep is a woman, and it shows just like how if you're part of the system, you could just like side with those in power as opposed to being sympathetic to other women that aren't as well off as you.
mm-hmm.
So it just shows how like the HR system is totally corrupt.
Yep.
Um, so they said that he resigned that week. The language used implies that he wasn't fired. So if you resign, I think that you get more like money on your way out. I don't know the details, but
Of course.
it doesn't sound good. I feel like Blizzard should have been on top of like scrubbing HR. Like you
Yep.
guys totally messed up. Like you are now removed from your position.
Yep.
Um, and yeah, this was more swept under the rug. Like they made a really big deal out of J. Allen Brack to the earnings call, but the HR was more like, oh, update to the Axios report. The guy who architected this all, he left this week. Um,
Yep.
so again, going back to shareholders, the stock dropped as soon as the workers announced they were doing the walkout. Um, and Jay Allen Brack usually talks on the earnings call, so quick, we gotta remove him. Make it very obvious, put new people in, so the investors are happy.
Yep.
But HR isn't as exciting for PR, so I feel like that got swept under the rug more until these places like Axios and then Wowhead were trying to
Mm-hmm.
make that more of an issue. And players seem very happy about this. People were like, finally, like this something that makes sense, targeting the department that totally failed everyone. So
Mm-hmm.
I do think it's a good thing. Again, obviously, I don't just want it to be symbolic. I want to see what is going to happen to
Exactly.
actually,
Not just stunts.
like, are you going to improve procedures Like there was, I think one report was saying that it was interesting how when Activision was trying to pressure Blizzard to meet their deadlines more, um, people felt even more hesitant to go to HR because they didn't want to be seen as like an inefficient worker or in trouble, or getting others in trouble, like making themselves seem like they weren't in Activision's good standing. So you
Mm-hmm.
have to handle this stuff delicately, or else it could be manipulated by people that don't have best interests at heart.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then finally,
More developments.
Overwatch.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have a follow-up article on this yet, but last week we covered that the Overwatch League had many sponsors leave. And then since writing the article, even more have dropped out. Only 3 remain. Um, and the Overwatch League, I feel, has struggled a bit since it went to YouTube as part of that exclusive deal. COVID certainly doesn't help people that can't go to a stadium and, cheer for their
Yeah.
own teams. It definitely has felt like a very expensive project that maybe hasn't done as well as it should. But the sad news is that when this statement is made, people start, going to the players and the hosts, the talent, and being like, "Oh, dead league, why are you part of this? Do you have a statement on this?" And it's like, these are the people that are actually putting the effort in to try to make it good. And it's unfair to pile on them when, again, it's the executives at the top that are pocketing most of the money and that created this bad situation that now is making the sponsors drop out. So I think it's just important to be upset at the right people, as opposed to, like if you're just someone hosting the matches, you're reading about the sponsors dropping out in real time and you're, like you don't know what your livelihood's going to be.
Yeah.
It's not like the people that are players were participating in this culture. It's like
Mm-hmm.
the fans and the talent are the ones that are suffering the most. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't know what's going to happen in Overwatch League as a result of this, but they've certainly lost a lot of their sponsors.
Yep.
And it definitely seems like there's a lot of people that were trying to do innovative things, make things more inclusive, foster a sense of community. And, it's just a shame if all of these people could now be punished because the executives were, not behaving properly again. And
Mm-hmm.
this affects the people who this was a passion project for, while the executives probably don't care if this happens. So,
Yeah. I mean, similar
uh,
things can be said
yeah,
about all the WoW teams as well, right?
yeah,
Because it's not everyone who is guilty of everything. And I guess it
mm,
sucks even more for Overwatch because that's not even the right team.
yeah,
It's a different team, but it's under Blizzard. So it means that they will also be under harassment, sadly, by people who are
yeah,
angry with Blizzard, thinking that they're doing the right thing by being angry with people because they think it's their life's purpose to make sure everyone stops playing any Blizzard game, and it's the wrong approach to improve things.
yeah. And like we covered with the show last time, like if you don't like a Blizzard game, regardless, you should stop playing as opposed to being upset by something. But the workers' demands, like boycotting games, that was never part of the workout. Like their demands were, like equal pay, like real HR, like a neutral investigation. It was not things like, everyone stopped playing our games and all employees quit the company to go work at like another, equally bad AAA studio. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's bad that people definitely have a right to be upset about what's going on, but taking it out on, the people in the middle, the employees who are just trying to proceed with their like normal everyday careers that are not the executives,
Mm-hmm.
that's not the right approach.
Mm-hmm.
Especially,
And people who want to
when
boycott because they feel it's the right move, they should, but they
yeah.
shouldn't pressure others to do the same.
I also feel that if you're going to boycott Blizzard, you should, if you're like, I Blizzard's the worst, I can't do this. Like, well, are you playing a game by like Riot or Final Fantasy. Like there's been some Final Fantasy very strange chat logs coming out from staff that worked a few years ago at Crunch. It's like, if you are going to be upset by one studio, are you researching the studios play that that you're going to play other games of?
Yeah.
So just if you're just try to be balanced and neutral, just because you don't want to be in a year
It's
being like,
sadly a
oh,
corrupt
Square
industry.
Enix.
It's not just one
Yeah.
company. Yeah.
Yeah, just be aware of that, and that also can inform you if you're like, well, why don't all the employees quit? And it's like, well, if all these other studios have had issues to certain extents, you can't just pick up and quit. If another place could be toxic in a different way, or like we saw with Ubisoft, like very similar.
Yeah.
So
So then people want to instead try to make change happen.
yeah, and like if you improve the situations at Blizzard, like things like equal pay or better HR, like that can improve
And
so
pressure other
many things.
companies.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And like you can still boycott Blizzard if you truly believe that's fair and you're disgusted by all these AAA studios, so you want to take a break from gaming in general. Like that's fair. I think just make sure you keep pushing for the rights of the workers so the
Mhm.
situation doesn't keep like poisoning um games, movies, activities people like for
Mhm.
enjoyment.
And I can understand also for some people it becomes like a personal thing in a way because you've always looked up to Blizzard and now you've been
Yeah.
disappointed. So you have that kind of relationship there. Then I can really understand if you would rather not play their games anymore. But it's and then you shouldn't. If you've felt cheated because you looked up to these people, but now they've done all these horrible things, then of course you wouldn't feel comfortable supporting their game in any way. But be wary that this is something which is an industry or society even problem. It's not just Blizzard and it's not just gaming. It's everywhere, sadly. And hopefully, with these things coming out of Blizzard and us working towards trying to get better work conditions and all that stuff at Blizzard, will hopefully open the eyes and pressure other companies to do the same.
Yeah, very well said. So our next topic is Bobby Kotick's response and the forming of the Workers' Alliance, building upon what you were saying about, what the employee demands actually are and like working towards meaningful long-term change. So we're going to discuss how Bobby was trying to change his tune. The workers formed an alliance and started calling out all of his statements, being like, hey, this sounds great, but not addressing our demands. And then how we've continued to see better conversations from Activision Blizzard, but again, still not addressing the demands. So before the earnings call, once the walkout was announced, the stocks like dropped instantly. And then Bobby Kotick was like, actually, we're very concerned about the situation, and our earlier responses have been tone deaf, and we're going to clean things up. And here's this firm called Wilmer Hale. It's going to conduct an internal review. So it's just funny, like, as soon as the stock drops, then
it's a
all
real
of a sudden,
problem.
yeah, it's like, oh no, the workers are not, producing the work. Everyone is panicking. Quick, let's change things. And obviously, strong words. People are like, okay, the bar is so low that I guess this is good in comparison. Like, you're not calling the lawsuit irresponsible. Good job improving. But the employees realized that, yeah, this sounded good maybe to shareholders, but it was not addressing their concerns. And they wrote this new letter to Activision Blizzard leadership. They formed a group called ABK Workers. I just want to highlight that in a minute because when Wowhead first covered that, people assumed it was like a corporate, like Activision-led initiative. Like it was like the corporation trying to express support, and it was fake. But it's actually the workers organizing the walkout, sort of going rogue and forming their own coalition. Just so people don't think that like this is some sort of PR stunt, because it's not. It's
move. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
like the opposite of a corporate move. Like it's a group formed to walk out and protest and hold leadership accountable.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they drafted this new letter to IGN explaining why the Wilmer Hale firm is a bad choice to audit Activision Blizzard.
Yep.
And they gave a lot of reasons, like, they're not a neutral third party. They have done work for Activision Blizzard before. Francis Townsend is, friends with different partners at the firm.
Yep.
Wilmer Hale, um, has experience protecting companies at the exec level, but they discourage workers' rights, and they've done tactics that are like anti-union at Amazon, and Uber. Their website states that their services advise on union awareness and avoidance. They have experience. Their branding is that they specialize in protecting the wealthy and powerful.
Yep.
Their language talks about investors, interest, retail clients, customers, but the language does not talk about employees or laborers. So people are saying that this firm might sound really good to a shareholder, but not if you are an employee. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so,
That
you
quote
know,
actually sounds so bad. Like it
yeah,
feels mind blowing. Like advising on union awareness and avoidance.
yeah. It's like, oh, that's
Like that's something that
yeah,
you're proud to do.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Wilmer Hale outlined Avakian's work as counseling, and defending financial institutions, public and private companies, hedge funds, accounting firms, investment advisors, boards, corporate executives, and individuals facing regulatory and criminal investigations and litigation with the government. And it's like, well, that sounds like a lot of people at the top that they're protecting, like hedge funds,
Yep.
boards, corporate executives. But it's less like advocating for better working experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So the workers wrote this letter rejecting the choice of firm. And, they said, we hope Activision Blizzard at the earnings call addresses this. And then Bobby Kotick, in his conference call a few days later, did this like 5-minute cold open that sounded pretty assertive for, a CEO, but again, did not address the concerns of the workers. And at one point, he was like, yeah, our pay's great. It's like, I don't know about this.
Yeah.
So, like he starts off by saying, I want to start by making clear to everyone that there's no place at our company where discrimination, harassment, or unequal treatment of any kind will be tolerated. Nowhere. We appreciate the employees who have come forward in the past and recent days with courage. I want to reiterate the commitments we have made to you. They want to be like, a company that sets the example for, diversity and a safe environment in the industry. They announce the two new co-leads. They talk about the experience they bring to the roles. They talk about several years changes to address company culture,
Mm-hmm.
more better environments. But then he says stuff like, "We regularly review our compensation to ensure that we remain equitable in our approach. We pride ourselves on paying our employees competitively and fairly for equal or substantially similar work." And
Yeah.
out of all the demands, he only touched upon the pay demand, and I don't think that's what people were hoping for working at Blizzard.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, obviously it's good when the CEO is gonna say we are against harassment. That's better than saying harassment doesn't exist. But, it's not unfair for fans and the upset employees to feel skeptical because they've made a very clear list of 4 demands and they're not being addressed at all. Wilmer Hale does seem questionable, and he's glossed over the concern that they're not paid fairly. And there's been like years of proving that the pay was not, in fact, fair.
Yep.
So, but yeah, it's definitely, actions speak louder than words. And, again, this was a very powerful statement to make. It was a very good speech if you were an outsider, but it's like, what actions are you taking that the employees are asking for?
Yeah.
And it's
Mm-hmm.
not a lot. So
No.
yeah, so I definitely feel like they seem very scared that people could unionize if they're hiring this firm that has
Yeah.
specializing in, working against unions. I mean, I have done some research, and it seems that when they are hired to do something and investigate, um, issues in a company, like they're very effective at doing what they're assigned to do. So I do feel that in their investigation, they will root out some people that were not acting professionally. But it goes much deeper than that. And I'm not sure if they're the best firm that will actually push some of the demands of the workers. They might
Mm-hmm.
clean up the people that are like the PR disasters for the company,
Exactly.
and fix some
But maybe
short-term
not the
things.
root. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. So also, I think we just published an article. Speaking of breaking news, is it
Yeah.
published? No, it's not published yet. One of the, is it drafted? Oh yeah, well, it's a draft, so you can't see it yet, but there is the SOC Investment Group has sent a formal letter to the lead independent director of Activision Blizzard, calling on the company to address the deep and widespread issues with equity, inclusion, and human capital management at the company. They are demanding that the executives have more diversity by adding a third woman. They would like her to reduce executive bonuses and to undertake a company-wide equity review. And this investment group is saying that, no changes have been announced or proposed that would in any way alter the current process for vacant openings on the board of directors. No changes have been announced with respect to executive pay. They even say the announced review by Wilmer Hale is deficient in a number of ways. This firm has a sterling reputation as a defender of the wealthy and
Mm.
connected, but it has no track record of uncovering wrongdoing.
Who was
Uh,
this written by?
the SOC investment group.
Hmm.
So, like a third party investment group.
Mm-hmm.
It's a union pension fund advisory organization whose mission statement states that it holds corporations and their leadership accountable for irresponsible and unethical corporate behavior and excessive executive pay. It supports regulatory and shareholder initiatives to ensure independent and accountable directors.
Are they
Um,
important enough
this
for
this
Bobby
group
to have
was
to care?
currently, yeah, this was the one that previously was critiquing Bobby Kotick's based pay, and then shortly after he cut his salary by 50%. This
Okay.
was also the group who complained about Electronic Arts executive pay, so I feel like they've had some sway
That's good.
in, yeah.
So basically, they're asking for some more action.
Yeah, and I think it's also really good that they're backing up the employees, being like, yeah, this firm might be good at what it says it's good at, but is that what we need for this particular situation? Maybe not
Mm-hmm.
really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
So
good
that's
because
just,
they're
yeah.
demanding for some very specific things compared to like stating a general problem. So if they've had success in their words being taken seriously, that's really good.
Yeah. So we'll have that. We're just proofreading that article on Wowhead right now. We'll probably
Mm-hmm.
have it up later today.
Mm-hmm.
We've been trying to like space out the various exposés, so it's not like a constant deluge of bad news. But when it's breaking news, like an exec steps down or something interesting happens, that that related to employee demands, we try to publish that the day of, and then have the anecdotes like, spread out more, so it's
Yeah.
not just like a wall of kind of depressing triggering stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so next we wanted to highlight Afraziabi and the Rockstar culture.
Yep.
This was interesting because last show we highlighted the WoW team's statement that the references were being removed. Like that popped up right in the middle of the show,
Mm-hmm.
and we were like, "Yeah, this seems good," like it's a step in the right direction. And And then we started to see that Afraziabi references were removed in game a few days later. But then we learned from a Kotaku article that Blizzard conducted the investigation a year ago on him and quietly removed him then. So it's like, so you fired the guy, but
You
you
knew
didn't
him.
remove the references.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, I'm sure the employees putting together the Warcraft statement were not the ones firing him and covering it up, but it does kind of tarnish it or make you think twice that, the executives wanted to cover this up, and then, now a year later, it's finally coming to light. And the
Yep.
employees are working super hard to get it removed quickly. So I think all of his references have been removed from the game at this point.
Mhm.
I
I
don't
think this
think
was a
any of
list
the
of
new.
some of them.
Yeah. So, like Stratholme, the Field Marshal, and Stormwind, like some Dire Maul weapons, all sorts of random things. Side note, this guy had a lot of references. Like, like
Yep.
the ego, where people being like, oh, he's my boss. I better name an item after him so he doesn't act all creepy to me, or maybe he named them himself. I don't know. It's weird. But
Yeah.
it's kind of an example of the person at the top ruining things for the rest of us, because I know a lot of community figures were like super happy if they found a reference about themselves, and you don't want this guy, spoiling it for the rest of people. Like, it's really exciting when you have something referencing your character, and this is what he's done is a huge mess. So I
Yeah.
feel like Blizzard might not want to go down the in-game reference route, because then it's going to be like, does J. Allen Brack have a reference? Should we remove that? It's coming to light that, Ben Kilgore did a bunch of inappropriate things as well. Does he have a reference? So,
Yeah.
maybe it's going to be easier for Blizzard if they don't use any employee references. It's, better be safe than sorry.
Yeah, I mean that's actually a very good point. I could see that happening. That they are a lot more reluctant from now on to add anything into the game from employees. I
Yeah.
wonder. So for a company, it makes sense to not just randomly go public and just out somebody for doing wrong things, right? It does
Yeah.
seem like it's understandable from a company's point of view to silently remove somebody. But what do you think could have? How do you think this could have been done in a more fair way without going down the route of
So,
like outing someone
well,
completely?
it's tricky because they have removed, when like community figures were under investigation, they have removed the references quickly. Like, they didn't publicize it, but they just quietly changed things. So
So they could have
it's tricky.
quietly changed it.
Yeah, so it's tricky because then it's like, well, why did you, if a community figure does something, allegations that they've done something wrong, you reacted quickly. But when a member of your company does things that were like 100% proven with an investigation to be wrong, why do you like let them stay? Like, I feel that that is not being
But
treated, yeah.
that's because the community member situations were probably more public in the first place, right? So
Right,
at the
yeah,
end of the
it's just
day, it's all just because it became public. Because
yeah.
like you said, they might have known something about an employee or a community person or anyone really,
Mm.
maybe done something bad. But if it's not public, they don't do anything about it.
Yeah, I almost
Um,
wonder, like, I mean, this goes back to Blizzard with the communication and PR. I almost wonder if, I mean, this investigation started in 2019. Like,
yeah.
someone should have realized that stuff was going to blow up when the investigation was done.
Yeah.
And maybe this would have just been like ripping off the band-aid sooner, or trying to get ahead of the bad PR, being like, you know, we've done some reflecting with COVID and realized that, there were some inappropriate things. This is an action we're taking. Um, could have even
Because
saved J.
that could
Allen
lead to more
Brack.
questions, though, right? From
Yeah,
the public.
yeah. I mean, ultimately, it's like, don't have your executive people being terrible people. I
Yeah.
mean, that's the main solution. But yeah, it's just,
I mean,
it's
I guess
just,
they could have
it's
removed
bad.
silently and just not said anything, like no statement, but at least remove.
Yeah,
Just to keep the integrity of like the game referencing thing, where people feel comfortable about the game and Because imagine all the abused employees like logging into the game and keep seeing these references of their
Yeah.
boss who is idolized but is a bad person. Then it doesn't feel
I
right.
mean, that goes back to the old Blizzard problems where everyone was like, gee, we thought all these people were great, but some of them are actually pretty scummy. And it's like, why didn't anyone come out? And it's like, well, they built this culture that they were so awesome, and you go around in game and you see all these references to them everywhere, public sentiment is thinking that they're so cool. Like, it was so difficult to come forward and say anything when these people are
Mm-hmm.
beloved.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, I guess the only other option would have
yeah.
been to just remove it, but then don't say anything about it.
Yeah, I mean, like, it feels like everything is going as badly as possible for Blizzard now, so it's hard to be like, oh, this would have made things bad for them because like, well, it feels like they've kind of hit, rock bottom if they're
Yeah,
getting rid
I
of
mean,
their,
mm-hmm.
leader and everything else. But yeah, maybe
Mm-hmm.
they figured, stuff is so bad, we'll just be quiet now and then make this next year's problem, and now it's next year and it's the current problem. um but yeah, I mean, it's also a disconnect. Like, I'm sure not all the employees knew why he left the company. I mean, they definitely made it
No.
quiet. We didn't even really know. We just sort of
Mm-hmm.
wondered what the reason was at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and speculated it wasn't anything good because they let everyone make a statement on their way out, but not him.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, again, it just sort of shows the disconnect between departments. We saw Townsend, like, she steps down, Blizzard doesn't know. Afraziabi has a separate investigation and goes. But the references are kept in, and people are shocked to learn the exact details.
Mm-hmm.
It just overall like a really sad situation. I also wanted to quickly highlight two articles that I think related to BlizzCon, which kind of, I think, also touches upon the fan experience because, at BlizzCon, these people were not just, um, you know, bad to employees, but also female fans. And the first article was one talking about the Cosby Suite with Kotaku, and while it's unclear if it was deliberately named that for darker undertones or if it was done in advance, I think the part that was really stood out from the article was how there were these chat logs where Afraziabi is kind of making off-color jokes, pictures showing a bunch of employees smiling with him, and it was sort of just, a lot of these people were aware of his bad behavior, of the off-color jokes, and they just sort of
Yep.
put up with it.
Mm-hmm.
And these were people that could have maybe been in a position to challenge him or not kind of humor his jokes. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that was the disappointing, clear-cut thing. That people that maybe seemed like, oh, they seem nice, maybe they'll have my side. It's like, oh, they were just sort of going, ha ha ha. And you can sort of see how this culture unfolded, that maybe not everyone was, you know, totally, evil doing shocking things, but they just kind of indulged or like looked the other way.
Mm-hmm.
And it
And I
created
think
this
people,
culture. Yeah.
yeah, and I think people probably also were in denial. I think
Yeah.
there's probably people who were kind of there, kind of knowing what's going on, but at the same time in denial, not believing it really. Like, it can't be that bad, can it? And I
Yeah.
think there's probably a lot of people who were thinking that way because they were just busy thinking how cool these people are. Like, these are the people that I look up to at Blizzard.
Yeah, I think that in some of the reports about Mike Morhaim's response and like third party anecdotes, people were saying, like, he was a really like inspiring leader, but he could be naive or he
Mm-hmm.
wanted to give people the benefit of the doubt, and you can see how
Yeah, that's
a
it.
bad actor would take advantage of this.
Yep.
It also, I mean, like, it shows how much the industry has changed. Like, it just sounds so weird to be like, oh, look, it's someone's, a hotel suite party where we all get drunk and network after BlizzCon. Like, even if nothing untoward happened, just the fact that that's how the end of the convention ended in like someone's deluxe, hotel room where
Yeah, the fact that
everyone
it's
got
okay for
super
it to be
drunk.
called that. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and then like it was like a sign of like prestige to be invited there. Like I remember I was never invited, but I remember at the early BlizzCons there was definitely a sense of like, oh, like, were you a fan that, befriended a dev? Like, did you get invited up to like the party suite, on this floor? Like there was definitely a sense of being, if you wanted to be in the in crowd or, friendly enough, like you would get invited to this sort of party. Um,
Yep.
and since the Cosby allegations came out, the party name changed, and it seems to have dissipated in recent years. But yeah, it was definitely this culture where I wasn't aware of that exact bad behavior going on there, but I was definitely a sense of like, oh yeah, this party has this weird prestige for some reason.
Yeah.
And then of course there was a sense of, the developers definitely preying on some fans at the Hilton bar. Like, if it was basically, if you were in this area at a certain point, like you could get, hit on, or some people thought it was, cool at the time because, when you don't have much power and someone notices you, you're like, oh wow, like
Yeah,
this
of
is
course.
cool.
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, so, while some details of the report may still be up for debate, I think that at the very least it shows sort of how someone like a Afrasiabi was sort of allowed to thrive and keep doing what he was doing if no one was, stepping in to and people were even saying like, oh, oh yeah, and some other pictures you can see, HR representatives, at the
Yeah.
party, and it's like, well, yeah, another example of why HR,
Everything was, they were
yeah,
all in it. Yeah.
yeah,
Everyone was in on it.
yeah. And finally, before we get to the walkout, I also wanted to highlight a recent Bloomberg report, and like we've been covering a lot of things at Wowhead, but like personally, this one got to me the most. Like I was like, okay, I'm just gonna like take off Monday as a result. And I was highlighting the rockstar culture, and it had this one quote where, let me pull it up. It was saying that some male employees began to see women at the conventions not just as customers, but as groupies. One woman who worked there recalled a conversation in which one of Blizzard's top executives told a group of his staff that young women, both fans and colleagues, saw them as superstars, and why shouldn't they benefit sexually from that?
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, this article just really got to me because, I've seen a lot of stuff, and as someone that doesn't work as Blizzard, but is, really into the fan culture and, has seen some stuff, or, has directly encountered some stuff that has been bothersome. And you do get friction when, especially in the older days, when you don't present yourself as a groupie, and you can tell that someone wants to view you just as like a groupie there, and be pretty and like be agreeable, and then there's like tension when you're not in that role. So this whole thing talking about how the rockstar mentality affected the employees but also the fans at conventions, it just really resonated with me, and it made me I've had to be pretty detached in like covering this for Wowhead, but this really got to me and
Yeah, because it's really upsetting.
made me yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And
So
I think it's also a good point made by calling it rockstar culture
yeah,
or rockstar, because it is something that has been seen in other type of industries, and it's really saddening to see that that was how people were treated at Blizzard itself, and we have kind of already figured that because of
mm.
things like Cosby 3 and everything, but it's still another level to read these kind of quotes. It just takes it
Yeah,
it just makes everything more more real and messed up.
yeah. Or if sometimes people feel like, I really like this game, but I don't know if like I feel welcome in, the community, or if I like fit in at BlizzCon, and then you read a quote being like, oh yeah, the employees, you know, viewed like a paying female customer as a groupie. Like you're like, oh yeah, maybe my instincts were right. Like maybe I wasn't, here I am thinking I'm awesome, paying to go to BlizzCon, and I'm buying these products, spending money on statues, and here I am being viewed as like this, object, to be
Yep.
idolized, and it
Mm-hmm.
just it doesn't make you feel good, and then it brings up all the experiences where you're like, oh yeah, I thought that was weird at the time, but I didn't speak up because I didn't want to be branded as, difficult or, a bad fan.
Yeah.
Like it just
Yeah.
it just brings up a lot of memories or, being angry on the behalf of other fans that were, you know, treated badly or stopped playing Blizzard games because they didn't feel welcome. Like it's sort of a confirmation that yeah, there are people that sort of don't view you as like a respectable paying customer,
Person.
and
Just a
that just
person.
stings.
A
Yeah,
human.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I do have to say that I think that this it's a very sensitive topic to cover, and I do have to applaud the writer for sort of explaining how fans were affected too by this behavior,
Mm-hmm.
and especially tying in things to BlizzCon. Like, oh my god, like, is there going to be another BlizzCon? Like,
Yeah.
with all of these things happening at BlizzCon, like between COVID and how it was already kind of like a labor of love that employees had to do on the side, and now we have, the Cosby Suite, and then the clip of the fan being booed, and now this mentality that, fans are groupies. It's just like,
If
will
they
this
by
exist?
if they
Yeah.
by any kind of miracle do decide to put on a BlizzCon together, it'll be the first that won't be sold out, like probably ever. Because that's another thing
Yeah.
too. Like people's trust is the rock bottom. Like why would
Yeah.
anyone go to BlizzCon at this point?
I even remember, like, back in the earlier days, they either didn't have it or it was very difficult to find. I couldn't find a code of conduct policy on the site, and in the early days when I was still like a volunteer or, being a paid employee but not in charge, my words didn't have a ton of weight. I was worried about that being like, well, if someone is shitty to me, I don't see that there's a code of conduct to like, what can my harasser do? Like, I was very concerned about this. Like, I still went to the BlizzCons, I still did work, but this was something I was worried about, that it took a while for them to um update like their
Address things.
security procedures on the
Mm-hmm.
site. Yeah. Um
Yeah.
so yeah, so and there's definitely definitely it's so jarring because BlizzCon is like, oh, we're a family, everyone is welcome, like bleed blue, make your connections with your fans, and then meanwhile it's like male employees trying to view women as groupies at the Hilton bar. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, just yeah, I think
Yeah, I
it's a
don't think
very
Blizzard's
important
gonna be in any
discussion
near
to have.
future.
Yeah, I mean, it could be, for several reasons it could be healthier too for the employees. Like it's they had this mentality of, oh, the employees should work the convention and organize the things themselves and makes them connect to the fans, but it's like, no, that just was a way to like save money, and you've essentially just dumped this second job on all the employees. Like, I remember how after they fired all of the community team,
Yeah.
like, BlizzCon was a mess that year. Like, there was like so few community people left, and they had to like run all the BlizzCon interviews and like tickets and stuff themselves. And
Yep.
like after they reduced a team of 9 to like a team of 2.
Yep. I think all the community people have always been undervalued, and especially with layoffs and everything, it's sadly always the bottom layer of things who do so much work but just go unappreciated. They're the ones that suffer
Yeah, the
first.
people that don't have the fancy sounding data for the
Yep.
shareholders, But I think this lawsuit, I think, is making clear that you need people that understand community and human interactions. Like, if you don't, then it's just going to be like
It's gonna
people
fall.
taking advantage of each other, and you're
Yep.
going to end up something that isn't very inclusive, or
Mm-hmm.
women as groupies, and like old school people promoting each other. Like, you're not going to end up with a healthy place. And I think when you have that attitude, it can spill onto the community as well. Like, the
Mm-hmm.
fans booing that girl and the devs being like, haha, so funny. Like, that just empowers people that want to troll or not be compassionate. So,
Yep.
uh, yeah.
Well,
To
and
end
with
on
that,
a more yeah,
yeah.
slightly more positive note.
Yeah, on a more
We just wanted
positive
to
note
highlight
after
the walkout.
everything. The
Yeah.
walkout happened, and it happened in person and in game. We have some photos to share of this. These are some of the examples from in game events where people got together for the walkout. And then we also have some pictures of the here the in-person events of people coming out for the walkout.
Yeah. If you're wondering, like, why are you logging in to do a walkout? It's the idea was that if everyone logs out at the same time, that sends a message to Blizzard, or even if it's like a data computer, that there was a significant event. Where if you just like avoid playing for a day or two, you can hand wave that away as many other factors. But if everyone logs off, like synchronized, that sends a message that the log off was part of a coordinated effort protesting the working conditions. If you decide not to play for a weekend, like an exec could be, oh well, like the weather was nice, maybe like this people were on vacation, or like, oh, this other game came out, they're playing it. But when you specifically do it all at the same time, it's like, no,
More
this was for a very
impact.
specific reason. Yeah. I also thought it was nice how the Wandering Ancient mount was used, because it's like the mount with the protector flavor text. So yeah, staunch defender of the Forest of Azeroth, and some people even use blue mounts to like a blue heart inside, because the people doing the walkout requested people to use a blue heart on social media to show support. Also, I would highlight that, if you're like, how can I still help? The people who organized the walkout recommended that you donate to a variety of charities that can, improve working conditions as well as education. And yeah, if you want to boycott, go ahead. Just don't harass the employees, and be mindful of the working conditions if you are playing another game or even consuming entertainment by another big company. Like, we had Me Too recently with movies. Other game studios have come forward in the last few years. So, just try to support the workers, because improving working conditions at Blizzard will spill over into other large industries.
Yep.
So I think that's about it for the
Yeah.
news.
I think that is it indeed. We
Yeah.
have a few shout outs from people who have resubbed to
Yeah.
the Wowhead channel here on Twitch. We have Aegis with the 43-month resub. Thank you so much for that. We got Taylor also with the 16-month resub, and Stevan with the 20-month resub, and also Makan with the 23-month resub. Stevan, in case you guys are not familiar with who that is somebody who also
Yeah.
works here at Wowhead, and you might have seen if you ever tuned into one of the data mining streams here on this channel as well. So it's always nice to see him around as well, lurking during these shows. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
about it for
So,
today. It was quite a long show, actually. A lot of
yeah.
things to cover.
So, yeah, I mean, hopefully we'll see the 915 stuff sooner than later. Because I feel like doing shows that are just the lawsuit might get weighty if there's, not a lot of, lore stuff going on, but, fingers crossed. I think that the non-lawsuit stuff on the show this week was very interesting. So, hopefully we had some lighter topics to discuss. And yeah, thanks everyone for being respectful. Discussing the lawsuit stuff. It's still, it's been several weeks, but it feels like it's been several months covering this. And, it's difficult but important conversations for people to have.
Absolutely. These conversations weigh so much, and like Perk said, the demands spill over to other companies and industries in general, and this is why it's so important. Now that there has been so much light put onto this, this is the moment to try and fix problems like this, because I can blindly go ahead and be like, hey, this Coca-Cola can, I'm sure bad things happened. This is not Coca-Cola, but as an example, I'm sure
Yeah.
bad things happens at this company, but it's kind of hard to get any attention if there is no, proof, or if there is no like actual event which has
Hmm.
come forward or anything. In this case, we have an event, multiple coming forward from Blizzard, and so this is a good moment to put your foot down and actually stand for something and demand change. And
Yeah.
it's important to, in these
Yeah.
moments, speak for it, to make things happen.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So
long show, but an important one. And
yeah.
we'll be
So
probably back next week with whatever else develops. We'll see if there's any more updates, game wise or industry wise or anything. We try to cover everything to keep everyone in the loop. It's difficult to keep track of everything that's going on. I mean, I kind of use these shows myself to keep track, especially with the industry things, because I don't read all those news sites, that cover all these stories. And I'm sure a lot of people out there think or feel similarly in that sense. So it's nice to have it all under one roof to just summarize it all. Like, we used a lot of different sources today. We had the Shondaland article, we had Bloomberg, we had so many different places for information.
yeah, I'm really happy that the mainstream media is covering this. Like I think
Absolutely.
with Riot, like it came out when Worlds was coming out, and I think like a music video dropped at the time, and people kind of got distracted by the shiny.
Yeah.
But
Nothing's
with
happening
this,
right now.
it's
Yeah.
like it seems to be really thoughtful as well. Like a lot of, people are taking their time researching. They're not just, throwing an article up the day after. They're speaking to many sources before publishing things.
Yep.
A lot of the articles aren't really being disputed by the industry. Like it all seems to be very solid reporting, spaced out over time. So people can't forget about it, and they're always pushing for accountability. Like I think it's really good the workers are being like, anyway, these are our points. We're gonna
Yep.
stick to these points. Like really cool speech, but these are our points. And that's not getting totally lost in you know all
Yeah.
the discussion.
And I feel like it's also very rare to see such quick actions and quick pullbacks of statements that are kind of like PR statements. I feel like PR statements
Yeah.
always just get away with it, and it's like
Mm.
whatever. Like, oh, they made a PR statement. People know it's bullshit, but it just gets away with it anyways. But in this case, there's been quite a few statements which have, in a way been withdrawn, like with the Fran Townsend stuff, where
Mhm.
she had to call the words warped based on the legal things.
Mhm.
So just the fact that people have to take back their words means that the public voice has mattered here, and I think that's huge. Like, we're causing a ripple here, which is so important.
Yeah. So, um, I hope that there can continue to be accountability. I would really love if at the next show we could see if the worker concerns were addressed for the first
Hmm.
time by
Hmm.
someone
Yeah,
at
because we had
Activision
that as
Blizzard.
live news today. Hmm.
Yeah, and it would, interesting to see if the two co-leads will, say anything else on the
Yeah.
topic. But I think that
Hmm.
their past histories and actions so far have been positive. But let's hope that we can report on some more change next show.
Hmm. More actions, hopefully.
Yeah.
Thank you guys, everyone, for watching. And yeah, take care of
Yeah.
one another. And yeah, listen to everyone.
Yeah.
Listen
Just,
to one another, and let's make this industry a better place.
yeah, have a good week, enjoy the Covenant campaign, and, just continue advocating
Be
for
mindful.
the
Yeah.
demands of the workers and being respectful
Hmm.
to each other.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's it from us.
Yep.
Bye bye,
Bye,
everyone.
everyone.
And it's a night for me. I'm going to sleep.
Yep.
It's like almost 2
Bye.
a.m. Bye, everyone.
Yeah.
Good night.
Bye.